Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome if you are new. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so we are going to be getting into it. We are going to be getting into all of it with this debate that happened between Candace Owens and um, Andrew Wilson with the Crucible. I am sure everyone has seen it. Lots of people have done reactions to it with I've been super busy with my channel. I had a big interview on Saturday, and I was a little frazzled from everything that had been going on in that debate. But I have some time now, and so I was hoping to be able to get into it today. So it's pretty long, and this video is probably going to be long. So let's get into it.
Are we live? Okay, so we're officially live. Candace, Andrew, good to sit down here with you, talking to you guys about the conversation that I think started with you being on Joe Rogan when you said, hey, I'm offering $300,000. And for the audience watching this, you have to know when you see this final product, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind closed doors. There was still communication till midnight, even some of the stuff this morning. Like it's like you're trying to sell a company. It's the last 24 hours that the deal doesn't work out, but kudos to the both of you guys that you made it work. The topic of discussion today, how this got prompted is, Andrew, you said there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson shot and killed Charlie Kirk. And Candace, your position was he's a patsy. Tyler Robinson is a patsy. So, of course, we'll talk about a lot of different things, but that's kind of how the whole thing.
Okay, so first off, he didn't even say the prompt right. So the prompt for Andrew was that there was overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk, and the prompt for Candace was that there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson is a patsy. Now, this whole situation and how all this worked out is like odd and crazy too. And I know a lot of people are disappointed with the debate, but there are some reasons why it did come out so oddly. And so, first of all, this all started because Andrew Wilson has been trying to get people on the side that that Tyler Robinson is innocent and he's being framed, et cetera, all the conspiracy nonsense. And they are literally saying that, all the conspiracy nonsense, and he's been trying to get people to debate with him to stand up for the claims that they are making. And even though they try to say they're not actually making claims, they're just asking questions. That is nonsense. They are making claims. Okay. And so then um he hasn't been able to get very many people to respond to him. Mostly it's just very low a level people on like X that will have X spaces with him. Then he got Stu Peters to do a debate with him, which was not a debate at all because Stu Peters wouldn't debate, like wouldn't participate in the debate. Um, Before that even happened, they were trying to get Candace Owens to debate. And then Brian with the Whatever podcast came out and said that he would pay, like, I think it was like $50,000 at first. No answer, no answer. There was like that other like modern day debate that was putting it out there that they would pay to have Candace come on, et cetera, et cetera. Then Brian upped it to 100,000, then he upped it to like 150,000. Then Andrew said he would match it. No response, no response. Then Andrew went on Joe Rogan and he mentioned it there that they had offered Candace Owens $300,000 to debate and she wouldn't accept it. And then Candace Owens had to address that and she acted like she had no idea who Andrew Wilson was, which is ridiculous. And that he was just some like low life random person like harassing her, and like no way you even have like that type of money. Then she like upped it to $500,000 and she would do it with all this ridiculous demands, one of them being that he had to that somebody from Turning Point USA high up, like Erica or Andrew, had to admit that he was working for them. And then um then when she finally said, "Okay, fine, I'll do it for 300,000, but it has to be this Friday and this has to be at my house." And then he kept saying, "Are you going to have the, am I going to be able to actually address your claims?" Because that's what Andrew really just wants to do. He didn't really care about standing up for the state case. That wasn't what it was in for him. He wanted to ask them questions, her questions about her claims that she has made against everyone and their brother being responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk, okay? And then I guess, like, learning from other people who are part of Andrew's team, the whole thing was behind the scenes very difficult. So they wanted to put the money in escrow. First of all, Friday's, like, really quick, right? From when she said it, it's, like, 1 week later, and so they're like, "Okay, well, we've gotta put the money in escrow." That's no easy task. Then she's like, "I'm not selling you property. This isn't a real estate deal. Why do we have to put it in escrow? I just want it by, like, Wednesday." And they're like, "We're not going to just give it to you," right? So they had to come up with something because she didn't want it in escrow, and so I think they, like, worked out some kind of lawyer thing or whatever. I'm not really for sure. But Andrew had to get the money out of his account, and they were worried that they wouldn't even have enough time for the money because, if you transfer money, sometimes it takes longer than 24 hours, so they were concerned about that. Imagine having to do all this stuff while also trying to prepare for a debate, and one of the rules was that they were going to be able to fact check. Now, Andrew and his team assumed that he would be able to, each one of them, Candace and them, would have, like, a tablet, and they would be able to get fact checks pulled up right in front of them. But when they got there that morning, and that's how they prepared. So when they got there that morning and he had his tablet, Candace made a big deal about that and wouldn't let them use the tablet, and everything had to be sent through Patrick Bet David, which complicated the whole situation because you're sending something in, it takes a minute for him to get to it. By then, they might have already gone by what the thing was, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so apparently Andrew's team sent in tons and tons of fact checks. It was just really awkward because they would move on, or like Candace would ramble on about something else and then Andrew would be asking her about that. And then by the time Patrick McDavid got the thing, it was sort of like awkward to bring it up again. Also, it was her team wasn't sending hardly any fact checks in. So it was just them and it was like looking weird and awkward. Like, are you having a debate with Andrew? Are you having a debate with the fact checkers? You know what I mean? So then and then also one of the fact checkers, he explained that if we would have known that the tablet wasn't available, we would have had a different uh preparing method where we would have had Andrew remember all this stuff, right? And so it just kind of threw everything off. It was thrown together really quickly. Um so what can we do, right? I mean, like, we get what we get. Everybody, I feel like, tried to do their best, in my opinion.
Got started. For the audience watching, I think this is truly for three different people. Number one is anybody out there that loves Charlie, respects Charlie, his legacy, what he did. We have a lot of love and admiration for what he did. He changed the lives of many people, young men, young women. You worked with him for many years. You guys were friends. You've said a lot of good things about Charlie, respectful towards him. You guys may have disagreed on some things, but you got a lot of respect for him. The second audience is the folks out there, you that's watching this. And so for you, you've been wanting something like this to take place. And kudos for Andrew for coming out and saying, hey, I want to have this conversation, and for Candace to accept it. So you have the ability to say, I agree, I disagree, comment, do all the stuff that you're doing online. And if you want to see more of these things, any of the three channels, subscribe to them: the Candace Show, the Crucible. I'm sure some of the people from Crucible are watching as well, and the PBD podcast. The more you subscribe to this, the more we're able to deliver these types of conversations to you. And last but not least, it's about the two of you. My goal is to speak as little as possible. 99% of the time, it'll be you guys speaking, and the audience will be able to see it. If I jump in, just so everybody knows, on the back end, both have agreed. In the back, there's three people representing Andrew and three people representing Candace to do fact checking. So at any point, if somebody makes a claim, the other can say, can we fact check this? I can jump in and say, fact check this. Even the folks in the back can say, fact check this. So It is a very fair conversation that we're having here. And so, with that being said, kudos to Michael Knowles. Your name was mentioned a lot. You missed out right now. The last 10 minutes, we talked about you. There's a lot of love and respect here mutually from both parties, all three of them here. And then, of course, the great Joe Rogan that started this conversation. And he also volunteered, but it ended up being this format that we have here today. So, with that being said, Andrew, your claim is overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. Opening statement.
Okay, so Joe Rogan didn't start the conversation. So in the midway between their um negotiations, Joe Rogan reached out and said that they could host it on his channel, which would have been amazing and way better, but he couldn't do it till like the next Friday or whatever. But like, yes, Andrew went on his show, which kind of like triggered Candace to have to respond, but he's not the one who started the conversation. Okay.
Statements, opening comments.
Sure. And what I mean by overwhelming is I just find it very convincing. That's, I think that's what most people mean when they say overwhelming evidence. So I have a brief opening statement. On September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Okay. So I sped it up a little bit because it's long and I don't want this video to be like 8 hours long. If it sounds too weird, I might turn it back down.
Many of you already know a lot about the events which occurred after Kirk's death. You remember the ghoulish laughter, celebrations, and madness we saw from leftists all over, from TikTok invasions, debates, posts on social media, destruction of memorials, and things like this. Within weeks of Kirk's death, a cottage industry began to form, peddling various alternative theories on how he died. What special interest may have killed him, what nations were involved, and was our own government one of them? Because this was the first nationwide traumatic event in Gen Z's lifetime, the demand for answers was severe and palpable. The leading theory from the conspiracy verse is that Israel worked with the United States government to murder Charlie Kirk. Within a day or two of Kirk's death, Ian Carroll claimed that Israel killed Charlie Kirk, and the conspiracy caught on like wildfire. This theory was built on one misleading piece of evidence, that in his final days, on or around September 8th, Charlie sent a text message reading, "Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause." This was sent in the context of a platforming dispute regarding Tucker Carlson. From this scintilla of misleading information, it was speculated that Israel killed Charlie Kirk because he would have successfully opposed the Iranian war. Now, that's a fun theory, and who doesn't like a good, fun conspiracy theory? I like them. But there is no evidence that Israel actually killed Charlie Kirk. And if Candace has some, I'd like her to actually show it to me. I'm open to suggestions, but to date, there hasn't been any. There is, however, tons of evidence that a leftist killed Charlie Kirk, just as Charlie feared they would. I believe Charlie Kirk, and I have the receipts. No, I didn't have a dream where he came to me and told me that the left killed him. No, he didn't come to me a dream and say, Candace Owens betrayed him. That never happened. In fact, I don't need dreams of any kind because I hold in my possession never before seen messages from Charlie Kirk to the security team on September 9th, 2025. I'm going to share the message with you today, which is the first time this information's ever been publicly revealed. On September 9th, Charlie's security team wrote to him, yes, law enforcement has been fully supportive and agreed to a security plan and posture. Tomorrow's event will be covered by both my team and the campus PD. If additional support is required, patrol units will be available. I have 11 on site. Charlie responded with this, okay, great. Remind them that they are there for one person's security only, because I'm somewhat worried the left is trying to kill me. That was a message sent September.
Okay, so this is really interesting. One, because we've sort of, okay, first of all, the thing with Israel, there is people, I've heard some people say there technically is some evidence, and I guess they don't know what evidence means. Like, but a Charlie Kirk being upset with donors and other political class people that happen to be Jewish that are upset with people he's platforming, and him having a spat with these people and getting a little upset with each other is not, you then do not connect the dot to these people killed him. And these are American citizens. Just because they are Jewish doesn't mean they are not American. They don't equal the state of Israel. Okay? Now, so people in the beginning were saying, oh, Charlie and these donors were all upset because at each other. So clearly the donors somehow equal like Israel. Okay? Then Harrison Smith came out and said, that somebody told him that Charlie had told them that he feared that if he left the pro-Israel cause, that Israel might kill him. Now, okay, we don't know if he said that or not, but if he did, who cares? It doesn't matter. It has no bearing on what actually happened. Okay. These are not proofs that, and plus, there is no evidence that is the state of Israel and Charlie were upset with each other at all, because Charlie had written a letter to Bibi that was where Charlie was concerned about the PR state of affairs for Israel with the young people on the conservative right. Why would he be, if he's upset with this country, they're upset with him, why would he be writing them, giving them advice on how to handle like PR and stuff like that? Now, the other thing that with this message is that Candace addressed this in the beginning, and she even met with Erica Kirk and asked her about this message, and Erica said that she didn't see it because it was in a signal message chat. Okay, so let me play you something.
I will say I was immediately refreshed by the fact that one of the first things that Erica did was she owned the lies, or rather, I guess they would cage it as miscommunications that were coming from various people at the company. Like, look, this is a company with 650 people that are employed. Everybody at this time is exceedingly emotional, and they are communicating. And no matter what somebody says on Twitter, they assume that this communication has come down from management, and that's not always a circumstance. But they owned right away, which felt great, that if you guys recall, Erica sat down with Glenn Beck. I actually missed this portion because I didn't get to watch the interview in its entirety, and we were pulling clips because a lot was coming out very quickly. But there was a portion that was going around that was viral, and it was Erica saying that she had Charlie's phone and that Charlie never texted anybody the night before saying that he thought that they were going to kill him. And that obviously reflected poorly on me because I was the one who said that he did, in fact, text multiple people the night before. And
okay, so the idea that he had texted some people the night before and told them that he thought someone was going to kill him came from Candace Owens. So that means, and we just heard Andrew Wilson read the text message between him and Dan Flood, which was his signal message, which was him and his security team. Okay. And maybe it was a group signal message. I don't know. But, that he seems really concerned about the left. And I really wish maybe he would have rethought maybe going to that university, because I don't know what was going on, but he felt, obviously in that message, you hear that he's concerned. So I wonder like what might have been going on, but other than just the usual, but that came from Candace. So that means she found out about the security team's message from somebody. Who the heck was this person? Was it Dan Flood? I mean, like, what was going on there? And then you'll hear she also mentions Andrew Colvett.
And then I went on Jimmy Dore on Friday, Jimmy Dore show, and I clarified. I said, Andrew Colvett told me specifically that he was one of the people that received this text message. So I got that first person. I didn't get that from a source. I got that directly from Andrew Colvett. And then somebody who had access to Dan Flood's communications said that Dan Flood similarly received a text message. They owned that right away and explained. Erica said that she has Charlie's phone. She's looking at his iMessages. And it turns out that he, like everybody else, communicates on Signal. He communicates on Telegram. And that when she heard me say that, they then went and looked. And yes, that what I said was true. Andrew Colvett received a message the night before, and Dan Flood received a message the night before. Now, they asked me if I had actually like a concrete a copy of what Dan Flood got the night before. And I said, no. If somebody told me what it said, which was almost exactly what Andrew said, which is they're going to kill me. Andrew did not know who they were, that the they that he was referring to.
So she's saying they, and like, who knows if what she's saying is exactly true. She uses this to imply Israel. Okay.
were, but they clarified that the message that Dan Flood received said the left is going to kill me. So I can't confirm that one way or the other. I have to trust them on that because I did not see that concrete message. I was told that it said they. Now, obviously, I will say I was immediately refreshed.
Okay, so later on, this is used over and over again to imply Israel, even though it said the left. She said it said the left. Who the heck told her? A security company's text messages with their client should be like on lock, right? So this is very confusing to me. I don't know, but anyway. So, but now everyone's running with this, like, oh, Erica said before on that Glenn Beck show that she didn't, that he didn't get a message saying that. And it's like, yes, this has already been addressed after Candace met with her. She said it was in a signal chat and she didn't realize it.
9th. Whatever could he have meant by that? Well, I think he meant exactly what he said, that he was worried the left was going to try to kill him. Now, we'll discuss this more later on in the debate, and maybe I have more never before seen evidence that exposes just how wrong and, in my opinion, idiotic many of these conspiracy theories have been. But that's what happens when you rely on what's called the evidence of the gaps. In other words, they don't have evidence. They seem to just make up evidence. And what did they make up? Well, in my opinion, kind of whatever lined the pockets. And I think it's ghoulish to profit off of the death of a good man. But we came here today to debate. And so let's get to it. The debate topic today is 1, my belief that there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. And 2, Candace's belief that there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson was a patsy and didn't kill Charlie Kirk. In sum, the audience is going to decide who has more evidence supporting their theory. My theory is that the state is correct that Tyler Robinson is the killer, at least based on evidence so far. And Candace's theory that Tyler Robinson is not the killer and he's a patsy set up by the feds. To be clear, this is not a question of reasonable doubt. If it was reasonable doubt, and that's all it was, and that's all Candace was proffering, I wouldn't even be here having the debate with her. It's fair to have doubts, as the trial has yet to occur, and the state hasn't even begun to try to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But Candace makes a more forceful claim. She claims that there's more evidence that Tyler is not guilty of murder and was set up as a patsy than there is for the state's case. And I just think that that's absurd. And she will not be able to demonstrate that in any way. In fact, she has almost no real evidence at all of her theory, whereas my theory is supported by compelling witness testimony, physical evidence, multiple confessions, all of which are independently compelling, but which are even more convincing as each piece of evidence corroborates the others. You'll notice the term overwhelming was included in both theories. This is because Candace demanded I defend my use of that term, which I think is fair, in describing the evidence against Tyler Robinson. She, on the other hand, only wanted to defend her theory as merely viable. That is, until I showed her clips in which she said she believed the evidence of her theory, that Tyler Robinson's a patsy, was supported by overwhelming evidence. Only then did she agree to defend that position. Regardless, we're both defending the claim that there's overwhelming evidence on our side, so it's worth defining that term. When I say the evidence against Robinson is overwhelming, all I'm saying is that I mean that as of right now, I find it very convincing. I see almost no evidence at all, only speculation on verified claims and suggestions of things that could merely be hypothetically possible. Dreams, vibes, feelings, things like this. Almost done, by the way. I have no problem defending the state's case and welcome Candace bringing up any challenges she would like. But if I'm honest, the reason I was willing to pay the $300,000 for this debate was to finally have a chance for someone to demand Candace be held accountable for the unbelievable theories and claims she's been making. Candace's investigation is indistinguishable from a leftist operation. She couldn't be doing more damage to the right if she were trying. She uses her considerable platform to relentlessly attack one of the most influential conservative outreach organizations for young people, and she's making a mockery of the online right-wing commentary class. She's harming Republicans in an election year by dividing them. She's attacking the very organization Charlie spent his life building, and she's attacking the people he loved, including his wife. And it cost me $300,000, but today I hope that she finds the answers for some of that.
Thank you, Andrew. Candace?
Did you get it out of your system?
I did.
Okay, great. Well, I'm not going to waste time with the preamble because I think I just want to get to the substance of the debate, and I will just speak to the audience. I've obviously had an audience since we've been covering this case.
Okay, so Candace does this constantly in this debate where she acts like she has no idea what a debate is, which is mind-blowing to me. Like, I've always known she wasn't a good debater, but to pretend like you have no idea what a debate is just, I don't know. It's crazy.
People know that there was a personal friendship between me and Charlie, and diminishing the pursuit of something that makes sense regarding what happened on September 10th by throwing it to this is just people who are conspiracy theorists. These are people who are just trying to generate clicks. I don't think that people should be satisfied by that. I want people to remember that it's important to think. We've been lied to by the government a great many times over, just the last couple of years, if you just think of the things that we've learned about our government. And I do want to say this. What's been the most disturbing element, I think, for everyone is that not only does the narrative not make any sense, which I'm going to demonstrate, I need to waste time with the preamble going through the points or trying to insult you or pretending that I've been running the podcast saying it's just dreams and vibes like I'm Miss Cleo. And that's the reason why it's taking so many influencers. It looks like $1 billion industry of influencers to dispute everything Candace says. It's not because I'm on my platform saying I had a dream last night. I don't think I think that diminishes.
There is nothing about this case that does not make sense. Nothing. Not a single thing except for the stuff that you guys make up and that you guys conclude without any logical leaps of logic. Okay? So you'll make one assumption and then you will leap to the conclusion of that without the logical steps in between. There is nothing weird about this case. It has been done incredibly well. The government is putting it on incredibly well. The defense is doing what they can with what they have because it is an incredibly sound, well put together case. And it is not the federal government's narrative at all. It is the state of Utah's case and what they have laid out and the evidence that they've put forward that we have seen so far in making it clear that Tyler Robinson is the one who did this crime. Okay? And there is no strangeness, nothing strange at all. I have seen cases where things are strange and weird stuff is going on, and this is not one of them. So it's just bizarre.
You as an argument. Obviously, we have presented a lot of evidence. You just presented a text message and said this is evidence. Well, that's how this entire thing began. You're talking about how Israel got into the conversation. It was because immediately after Charlie died, one of the first things we saw was this push to make us all think and remember how much he loved Israel. It's because the prime minister of Israel, who's fighting like a 27 front war, felt that he needed to come do a little mini tour and to be strangely to state that I did not kill Charlie Kirk when nobody was having that thought that I can remember. Nobody was going, I wonder if Bibi Netanyahu killed Charlie Kirk. And then we had
immediately after Charlie was killed, everyone on the Q-tarded side of things, or the JQ tards, was claiming that it was Israel. Ian Carroll came out and said it was Israel. Harrison came out and said that someone told him that Charlie was afraid of Israel. Okay, so Charlie and Bibi were friends. He was doing the rounds, and someone asked him about it because it was literally being talked about all over the place. So that's absurd. And just because whatever Bibi does and who he talks to and acts weird on TV, whatever, that does not, you can't make the logical leaps to clearly this is Israel that killed him because I think that this world leader is acting weird. That's not like somebody was just killed. People act weird after people were just killed.
A round of influencers who lied and said Charlie was not changing on Israel, that he wasn't having any disagreements regarding that topic, that the day he died, he just loved Israel so much. And I demonstrated via a text message, which you just mentioned, and you're now contextualizing and pretending it was just about Tucker Carlson, which is not true. It was a part of a broader shift that Charlie was having over the last, I would say, actually, on your show, it began since October 7th, which is when I began asking myself more questions about Israel as well. And so, yeah, when all of these things happened,
okay, did he mention the text? That message he read had nothing to do with any of that. So, like, I'm a little confused.
Aftermath, and then I drop a text message after everyone is denying that. Tucker Carlson then comes out and confirms the conversations that he had with Charlie. Megyn Kelly then comes out and confirms the private conversations that she had with Charlie. People then begin to ask a reasonable question, which is, why are we lying about this? If they were
what does this have to do with anything? This has nothing to do with anything, lady. Like,
coming with that, and they had said, hey, yeah, Charlie was starting to ask questions. I think after October 7th, it's reasonable that people are starting to re-examine our relationship with Israel. We wouldn't be here today. But it has been lie after lie after lie.
Who, after somebody has died, and you might have been arguing with them about something, like let's just say for the donors, for example, who after they die, do you come out and say, oh yeah, we were getting along terribly, we were fighting in text messages, blah, blah. Who does that? Or do you just go, Are you just upset that your friend, who even though you might be having a hard time with them at the moment, was just brutally murdered in front of everybody, and you're reacting about how, you feel about that, your remembrances of them in their life other than the fighting? Who comes out and just does that? That you're saying things that, like, nobody would ever do. You know what I mean? It's just they're supposed to come out and say, "Oh, me and Charlie weren't really getting along," like, you know, the weeks before he died, it was, why would they do that? Why would they, like,
Debunk after debunk after debunk. Yes, I did share that I had a dream that Charlie was betrayed. It's not a dream anymore. It's a reality. I look at what the organization has become, the people that they are partnering with, the lies that they are telling, the extraordinary people that they're sending out to say that I hadn't speak to Charlie since 2018, and it begins to look like a conspiracy. And just as a historical fact, that entire term was created by the CIA to gaslight people after the assassination of JFK. So it's not exactly one that makes me nervous. Like, calling somebody a conspiracy theorist is essentially saying that they demand further answers and they're not accepting the Fed slop. So I'm grateful that you came today. I don't need to, like I said, take cheap shots and discuss your manner of debate or your strategy. And I'm also grateful that you shared that you had that text message today, because everybody watching knows that I have been demanding not a debate, just an open conversation with Turning Point USA. They should be here. It shouldn't be you in that chair. It should be the person that took Charlie's place, maybe Erica Kirk, maybe Andrew Cole, that he's a spokesperson.
bitch, they sat down with you, and then you proceeded to say that they were lying, and that you and then, oh my god. Listen. Listen, bitch. They did sit down with you. They sat down with you, and then you called them liars and murderers and people who were conspiring to murder and covering up things, and all the stuff that you've been saying about them, that they wanted Charlie gone and she wanted to take his place and all this stuff. They sat down with you and had a conversation with you and tried to work it out with you, and then you called them all liars and murderers.
And rather than doing that, they send us another influencer. So let's see how it goes.
Just out of curiosity, are you between 0 to 100? What is the likelihood that you think?
You are an influencer, Candace. What the actual fuck are you talking about? Oh my God.
Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk and killed him?
Based on the evidence right now, I don't know, I'd say 75, 85%.
Candace?
0%.
0%.
I'm at 0.
So
with what we've seen in terms of the evidence, I'm at 0%.
So not only, that maybe somebody was behind him as a
0%. With all the evidence that she's seen, she's at 0%. Okay, so there are text messages where he confesses and talks about doing it. There are snippets of statements inside probable cause affidavits of the parents who say they implied to them that he had did it, that Tyler Robinson implied to them that he did it, that he was going to take his life, etc., etc. They got him to come to their house. They talked him into turning himself in. They worked it out on a peaceful way to do it, and then they went there. Right before he turned himself in, he sent Discord messages saying, "It really is me, guys. It really is me. Look at the security cameras. I did it. It is me. Look at the security footage," something like that. There is footage of him arriving in his car. They know it is his car, okay? Onto campus, scouting the place out, leaving, coming back in different clothes. They have ring footage of him exiting his car with a limp, walking up the steps, getting onto the roof, taking the shot. They even have video of that. And then him fleeing into a wooded area where they find a gun. They have DNA evidence of on the gun, on the towel, on the screwdriver found on the roof. They have data from a dash camera that he had in his car. They have Google Maps data of him putting in directions of places he was going that day, to the campus, back home, etc., etc. They have cell phone location data. They have all this stuff that's talked about in warrants, affidavits, motions, hearings, and then what we saw at the trial. They have testimony from Lance about how he felt bad how he was busy the next day, and saying he felt bad that he did it and wish he hadn't have done it. And that like, this is a lot of evidence for a murder case, more than I have seen at this point in time. So to sit there and say, like, with the evidence that I've seen, I'm at 0%. Have you ever seen a murder case before? Because this is literally is an overwhelming amount of evidence.
Patsy influencing him. You're not even saying that he didn't even shoot Charlie Kirk.
Right. I would, if you said, was he involved that day, as
Right.
I have consistently said on my platform, I would say yes, he was. I don't know what role he played, but as the shooter, 0%.
Do you have any evidence for it?
For what? My percentage?
The fact that he didn't shoot and kill Charlie Kirk.
Yes, which I'm hoping we're going to get to all of the evidence that he feels that he has. I mean, I'm not even convinced that Charlie was shot from the rooftop on Losi that day, based on the evidence that has been.
Do you think he was shot?
I do not think that Charlie was shot from a 30-06 from
Yeah, but
Losi.
just shot at all.
I don't know. I think that a projectile hit Charlie, and I'm open to other people's presentations, but I have not seen any compelling evidence that Charlie was shot by a 30-06.
Can we see maybe if we're going to have an olive branch to each other, if maybe we can establish.
Okay, so she says she has not seen any compelling evidence that he was shot by a 30-06. Well, we all saw the video. And if you don't slow it down frame by frame and make it look weird, we all knew that he was shot with a high power rifle when we just watched the video normally. Okay, that is evidence. That's going to be brought into court. That's going to be shown to the jurors. And it's not going to be slowed down like frame by frame where you're catching like what happened in like half of a second. Like, these aren't cameras that do the slow down motion. These are just 30 frame per second cameras or whatever it is. And you're slowing it down, and then that makes it look weird. But when you just watch it, it's not weird. Okay? That's evidence. We all saw it with our own eyes that he was shot. And then a rifle was found in the woods where the person on the roof ran.
What we consider the facts of the case to be first.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you're not sure if he was actually shot. You're open to alternative theories.
He was definitely hit with a projectile of some description. If we're talking about was he shot from a gun, a 30-06, I would say definitively no.
Okay.
It defies common sense to think that he had a Superman neck. And even if he did have a Superman neck, which has been demonstrated, I think actually recently a YouTuber actually set up Valhalla steel cages and shot it and it went through. So under no circumstance will I.
So at least not a 30-06.
Definitively not. A
Okay,
30-06 from Losi, 150 feet. No.
But you're not necessarily closing off the avenue that he could have been shot at all.
With maybe a smaller
Caliber. Okay. And then there's some things that I'm going to make concessions on that I do think we need more answers on, and I'm fine with that.
Okay. He was shot in the neck and it went down at an angle into his spine. Okay. With a soft core, like these are not very big. The soft core, they are known for mushrooming and they can fragment upon hitting bone. They went into the spine, which absorbs shock. That's why it is known in medical literature as a bullet trap. Okay? It is not unusual that it wouldn't go through. If it hit like this, yes, just the fatty, meaty part, it probably would go through, but it didn't. It went into the spine.
And we can get to those things as well. The other thing is in the timeline, one of the things that we dispute, I think, on the timeline is that you think that Robinson drove hours away to a steakhouse in the timeline. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the compelling evidence that you think you have there?
I spoke to the owner of the restaurant, and I have seen the receipts. I know the conversation that I had. And I think it's enough that, it will be presented, obviously, if this goes to trial. But yes, I do believe that he was in Penguin, which is near his grandparents' home.
Did he give you an
It will be presented if it goes to trial. Does anybody know what's wrong with that? And this is what drives me crazy with this whole effing debate, because she is saying things that are so beyond the facts and evidence, how the court system works, how a defense attorney would put on a defense. If there is evidence that he was somewhere else when the state says that he is in another location, that is something you would bring up at the probable cause hearing. The probable cause hearing is so that you don't have people who were not actually did the crime, who are not guilty of the crime, or going to be found guilty of the crime, to sit in prison forever and ever and ever waiting for the trial, which is super risky business. A trial by jury is insanely risky business. The prosecutors are really good at spinning narratives and with the evidence that they have and being very convincing to a jury, and your life is in their hands. And if they don't all acquit you and you get a mistrial, you are going to get tried again, and you are going to get tried again and tried again and tried again until they get that guilty verdict. It is not something that you risk if you did not commit the crime. So when she just said there, I know enough about it that it will get brought up in trial. No, it would get brought up now. If it is exonerating, it would get brought up now. It would have got brought up probably earlier than even now. They have access to their client. Their client would say in the very beginning, I wasn't at blah, blah, blah. I was at the steakhouse. And then they would immediately put that kind of information into motion hearings, et cetera, et cetera. We would have already heard about it by now. This is insanity. They're not going to wait until a trial. They would be disbarred for that.
edited copy of that receipt?
I have seen an unedited copy of that receipt. It was not given to me from the owner. But I want to, before we get into all the timeline stuff, I want to address what you think is evidence so we can keep this on par with what your claim is.
Well, I think that that's a piece of evidence that's in dispute. And that's why I'm...
Yeah, but we're trying to get to whether there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson did this.
Yeah,
so
if
whether then starting
if you want to use the first part of that for the internal critique...
Yeah, we should go over the actual evidence that we feel...
The first reason that I think it's compelling evidence is that Tyler Robinson's rifle was found near the crime scene. So I would consider that to be very good evidence. And also the fact of the matter is that I dispute this claim that a 30-06 could not have made this wound. I think that that's absurd. 150 grain Remington core lock absolutely could shatter when it hits the neck of any human being. When you say that there's some steel neck and it's a smaller caliber, you have to make a counter explanation. Why wouldn't a smaller caliber also go through bone?
It could. I didn't say it can't.
Right, exactly. So if that's the case, then ammunition is going to be the critical key here. And if we have frangible ammunition, which we do in this case, a flex tip round, well, I'm sorry, not a flex tip, a soft point round from 150 grain Remington core lock, that's just a small jacket that goes around the actual lead piece. This thing could have split apart in air for all we know, but definitely upon impact. And we have the medical examiner who confirms this in a summary. My team can bring that up, the summarization, which means he would...
Okay, so some people are taking issue with the fact that he said that the bullet could have broke apart in air for all we know, and they're like, oh, I can't believe he said that. Well, this is something that can happen, so let me show you. Okay, have soft core bullets ever broke apart in the air? Yes, bullets made with soft, typically lead cores formed from soft lead. Bullets are extruded into what I don't know what all that means. Soft core bullets consist of a soft lead or lead alloy core inside a harder metal jacket. In-flight disintegration is uncommon with properly designed and loaded ammunition, but it is a documented issue, especially with lighter, thinner jacketed bullets pushed to high velocities or spun at a very high RPM. Okay, and then it goes on to list all the factors that can cause it to do that. So Andrew Wilson saying that bullets can break apart in air is not like impossible, you know?
Part in air for all we know, but definitely upon impact. And we have the medical examiner who confirms this in a summary. My team can bring that up, the summarization, which means he would have to be a part of some kind of conspiracy as well.
Okay. So just to start with your point about saying that the gun was found near him, near Losey Center, or I guess off in the woods. That gun, did you watch the testimony? Did you watch the preliminary hearing?
Yeah, we covered it live. Yeah.
Okay. So forgetting what the summary of the medical report was, did you watch the testimony that was given by the Caitlin Oliver, the ATF woman, Samantha Carner, any of those people who went into the science of?
Yes, I recall. You're talking about
the bullet analysis.
Yeah, when they went into the DNA.
Okay. So that's kind of the most relevant part.
Okay.
I'm not denying, I've never denied on my platform or anywhere else that a gun owned by Tyler Robinson was found near the crime scene, right? That doesn't remove if you think somebody set up as a patsy, you could take a gun out of this room right now and you could walk out and plant it in the woods near a crime scene. That's not convincing evidence to me.
I concur with the fact that that's a possibility.
So you I think have said on a platform that you were a gunsmith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And for how many years?
Many years.
For many years.
Mm-hmm.
You also said that you were an Army sniper.
I wasn't a sniper in the Army.
Okay.
And I never said that.
Sorry, your wife tweeted that you were an Army sniper.
Yeah, I don't know. Like 15 years ago, she said something.
Does it change 15 years later?
She said that it was colloquial. So
Army sniper is a colloquial term?
Yeah, I was never an Army sniper.
Okay. What did you do in the Army? Did you teach this? She then corrected and said you taught rifles in the Army?
No, I didn't teach rifle. No, I taught rifles as a private citizen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was an NRA instructor for many years alongside my gun shop.
As with your expertise, when she gave testimony on the stand, Samantha Carner, that there was dust and there was debris that was found in the gun barrel.
Yep.
And then when we had the person who, and this was, I believe, Caitlin Oliver, who explained painfully about the DNA, the prints.
Well, let's start with a point at a time.
I'm not done. You said something, so I'm going to finish my thought, right?
You don't want to do a point at a time?
No, well, sure. If you want to respond to, I want you to respond to 2 points. I want you to start with 2 points.
Okay.
Dust and debris in the gun barrel.
Yeah.
Secondly, the fact that there were 5 sets of prints, 5 plus actually by the end of the testimony, 5 sets of prints for which
There were not 5 sets of prints. She's talking about a DNA mixture and she's calling them prints. She thinks that they are fingerprints. You guys, this is so infuriating, and everybody else was saying it too, that I noticed online that were covering it, blah, blah. They're not talking about fingerprints. You can't take prints and say, oh, there's 5 fingerprints on this. That's literally insanity. That's not what they're talking about. She thinks touch DNA is prints, fingerprints.
We already had the woman who worked for the FBI forensics testify that above 2 prints, if you're taking a sample, it's no longer a science, right? She testified that when they took the sample of what was on the trigger, they saw 5 plus prints. And among those 5 plus prints, Tyler Robinson's was the most degraded. So I would like you to explain how Tyler Robinson.
Okay, so how do you get fingerprints off of a trigger? And she also, like, her and her ilk of people, they don't know what degraded means. They think it means old. Okay, so what does degraded DNA mean? Degraded DNA refers to DNA molecules that have suffered structural damage, primarily becoming fragmented into shorter pieces rather than remaining as long, intact strands. DNA is normally a long, continuous double helix of nucleotides. When it degrades, chemical bonds break, producing random nicks, single strand or double strand breaks, missing bases, chemical modification, or chemical modifications. The result is shorter DNA fragments, often ranging from tens to a few hundred base pairs instead of thousands or more. Degradation occurs through a combination of physical, chemical, and biological processes. Environmental exposure, like heat, humidity, UV radiation, extreme pH, enzymatic activity, hydrolysis and oxidation, time, especially in post-mortem tissues, crime scene evidence, or ancient samples, chemical treatments, or poor storage conditions. Okay, why would someone like Tyler Robinson's DNA be more degraded than the 4 others in the mixture from the trigger swab when he had just handled it? Degradation in DNA mixture does not reliably indicate who handled an item most recently or when each contributor's DNA was deposited. Forensic analysis in the Tyler Robinson case explicitly noted this limitation for the trigger guard swab. Okay, now it was only the trigger and the trigger guard swab that showed degradation. And I see people over X being like, why wouldn't if he put the gun down his pants, that means it's touching his skin and he is sweating, which means his uh DNA would be all over the gun, which it was. It was only this trigger part where it had like some degradation, but he was the most contributor to all the swabs, including the trigger swab. The sample was a complex mixture consistent of at least 4 contributors. There were clear signs of degradation, typically visible as a ski slope pattern on the electrophonogram, where larger DNA fragments amplify more poorly or drop out. The major profile attributed to Robinson as the largest quantity of DNA showed the most degradation. Analysts stated they cannot determine when or how any of the DNA was deposited, only whose genetic material is consistent with the sample and in what relative quantities. Secondary transfer is possible, and major simply means the largest amount detected, not recent activity. So the degradation pattern is clearer and more measurable. Minor trace contributors often have so little DNA that the stochastic effects, like random allele dropout, peak height imbalance, dominate, making their degradation harder to quantify fully or appear milder. Surface versus protected DNA. DNA deposited last sits more on the exposed surface of the trigger guard. It is therefore more vulnerable to later environmental insults like heat, humidity, UV light, moisture, microbes, or even brief cleaning and handling attempts after the last contact. The older DNA from prior handlers can persist in microscopic crevices, under residue, or in less exposed areas and degrade more slowly. Okay, so this is something I have heard other people say, is that because he actually touched it last there, but he's the major contributor, but he touched it last, that's going to be more acceptable to degradation than the much older people who've handled it later or whatever. Degradation is not a precise clock. It occurs gradually due to time, heat, moisture, UV, enzymes, or chemical example, blah, blah. In short, the observation that Robinson's major DNA showed more degradation than the other contributors is scientifically plausible and does not contradict the possibility of recent handling. Okay, so people that are following Candace Owens and her herself are making it sound like degradation means that it's older, and that is not the case. Okay, that's not something that's even going to be a thing that like this is normal in cases. Like they see this every day all the time. It's not strange to the court, it's not strange to the lawyers, it's not strange to the DNA analysis people. Okay, like it's just silly.
Since prints could be the most degraded, when she said actually you could have DNA on something that you've touched, you could have DNA on something that you've never touched, and to get DNA degradation, they've looked at pieces, items 20, 40 years on that don't have degradation. Yet Tyler Robinson's prints, amongst 5+ other prints, were the most degraded on that weapon.
Yeah. So let's get into all 3 of the claims. First, with debris. When it comes to debris, firing rifle doesn't always blow the debris out of the barrel.
Okay.
So
you think there could be debris and dust.
Yeah.
He just fired
Okay, if anybody ever decides to shoot someone and murder them, all you have to do is put some debris in your gun and it nullifies the whole case. It negates everything. You'll get to walk free. No big deal.
The weapon.
Sure.
Okay.
Not only that, he left it in a forest. Now, I don't know if you agree with me, but if you leave a rifle in a wooded area, it's also possible that debris could get in that way. But I'm not even sure that that's what the case is. I think it's far more likely that you fired the shot, it just didn't blow all the debris out, and it often doesn't. You'll find this if you take Grandpappy's dirty rifle and it's all dusty inside the bore and you go fire it. You'll often look down the bore and there's still dust.
Okay.
Happens all the time.
Okay. And the prints?
Yeah. So the prints we don't know all of the details on just yet.
We do. It was excruciatingly long testimony on the prints.
We don't because they haven't gone to trial, so we don't know on the print front. But Tyler Robinson's DNA was on there. You made the claim that Lance Twig's DNA was on there, and it was not.
Well, when she gave the testimony, no. First, let's go to your first point because that's wrong. We can get a fact check on that. What do you mean we don't know until it goes to trial about the degraded prints? She testified, and this is the person who took the prints.
Yes, but the problem is that inside of this particular testimony, you agree with me that there's going to be much more of the DNA analysis in the trial, right?
But you also would agree that her fact is not going to change. That among the prints, his was the most degraded. So I'm asking you to address that. How could that be possible?
Let's give it. Let's just grant this for a second as a possibility that his fingerprints were degraded.
And it's not a possibility. It's a fact. The person who took it.
I'm just granting it for the sake of argument.
You should grant it because it's a fact that she presented.
So now it's granted. So what?
What do you mean? So what?
Yeah. So what? What does that prove?
It proves that if his prints were the most degraded amongst 5 of them, you're going to have to explain how that's possible if he's the one that recently fired the weapon.
Yeah. So
this is not a thing. Degraded does not mean time. This is what she's getting confused about. The DNA, not prints, is that it is not about time. It's not that he could still be the last person to touch it, and the the DNA on the trigger can still be degraded. It doesn't mean what they are implying that it means. They're talking about DNA. They have no idea what they're talking about. This is infuriating. If you do not know, or you can't do like a Google search about what degradation on DNA means, then what are you doing? Why are you talking about it on a giant platform? Why are you spreading all this stuff that's untrue about DNA? They would have said that. The lawyers would have said that if that was the case to the judge.
Wait a second. You're saying that it's an impossibility that if his fingerprints are the most degraded,
I'm telling you to explain it. You're the gunsmith.
Well,
so
wait a second. How would a gunsmith give an analysis on fingerprints or DNA? Do you think that I work in a DNA laboratory?
So
with
your answer
fingerprints?
is I don't know. You can just say you don't know.
But
you don't have to.
But I did.
No, you said so what?
Yeah,
so say I don't know. I actually don't have an explanation for that,
prove,
Candace.
Though, is my question.
Well, I think that what it would prove is that it is a more viable theory that people who had stronger prints on the gun may have used it more recently.
Did they say who else had fingerprints on the gun?
They named Matt Robinson explicitly.
Okay.
And this was a part of the testimony where she was speaking about how they got samples of elimination samples from the home of Amber Robinson, Matt Robinson, and Lance Twig. So those were the 3 names they named.
So are you saying that Twig's
Would you like me to
fingerprints-
finish my statement?
I just want to make sure I'm clarifying.
I'm trying to finish the answer, but it can't be clarified until the answer comes out of my mouth.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
This was a portion of her testimony where she was explaining how they got elimination samples from the home. And she named Matt Robinson, Amber Robinson, and Lance Twigs as the elimination samples that she was using. And so she explicitly said, some of them, so we can assume 2 out of the 3, were their prints were found on the gun. She explicitly named Matt Robinson as someone who had prints on the gun, and then said there were 5 people that they had taken that sample from. And again, what's also relevant here is the earlier testimony, which came from the FBI forensics analyst, I believe it was on day 2, where she said that when you're using those mixtures and those samples and you get up to 5+, it's really hard to make any sort of a determination. So both of those things are relevant. If you can't explain why his prints are the most degraded and you're saying he is the shooter, it's not really a so what. It's an open-ended question that people have a right to pursue. It's not a conspiracy. It's actually proof of my claim that there's evidence that he was set up as a patsy.
That wouldn't prove anything about him being a patsy.
It said it's evidence to support the claim that he could have been set up as a patsy.
So this is why I said earlier, so what? Because even if it's the case, this doesn't.
No, it is not. That is an incredibly strange leap in logic to get from that to that. Like, it's just unbelievably, like, oh my gosh, it drives me nuts.
Have an explanation for it yet. That doesn't actually give you any evidence in your corner for Tyler Robinson being a patsy.
Okay,
hang on. I didn't cut you off. right? You would need to actually explain how this would demonstrate Tyler Robinson. This is tied into Robinson being a patsy. Are you claiming that these fingerprints were Lance Twiggs or that he had any DNA there?
I'm saying that it could be Matt Robinson. It could be Amber Robinson. That sort of information is going to come out during the trial.
How would that tie into the idea that he's a patsy?
Yes, because if his is the most degraded prints and the information that I shared on my platform is true, that this gun was given to Tyler Robinson as an heirloom. I had conversation with members of the Robinson family, Twiggs family, both of them. You know, like I said, we're not just dreaming.
Okay, so this is not an heirloom rifle. An heirloom rifle is a or gun or whatever is a is something that doesn't work and that you don't use, but it gets passed down from person to person. So like there are guns that my grandpa has that he'll give me that no one will ever use because the bullets aren't easy to get for them. Parts of it is broken. It just doesn't work right anymore, but it's like a really old gun. Those are heirloom guns. Now, also, your family will pass you down guns that still work. Those are not heirloom guns. Those are family. I forget what there's a word for it or whatever. I have some of those that they're guns that still work perfectly fine, and I can use them and shoot them if I want. They're old, but they're still usable. An heirloom and I wish I could remember the word, but it's like something about something. There was a guy who explained the differences between heirloom guns and then the type of gun that Tyler would have used that came from his grandpa.
And if we're having those conversations and they told me that gun was only given to Tyler Robinson because it was a family heirloom. Okay. So it was his grandfather's gun or great grandfather's gun. Okay. I don't remember the difference. I don't remember which one it was. And so he got it because he's the firstborn. So, but he's not much of a shooter is what I was told. And so he has this because he inherited it essentially. So if I get something from my grandpa and I put it up on the shelf and I own this, you could see that could be.
How do we get to the patsy part?
You don't let me ever get to the end of the sentence. So how could we get to the patsy part?
Okay, I'll wait patiently till we get to the patsy part. So
that could be a reasonable explanation as to why there was dust in the barrel, because he doesn't often shoot this weapon and he is indeed a fisher. And it could also be a reasonable explanation for why we have Matt Robinson's prints on this. Obviously, Lance Twiggs, even if he has prints on things, they live together, that doesn't really mean anything. But that could demonstrate that somebody took his weapon and put it somewhere. His prints are the most degraded. Somebody else's prints, there's more presence of somebody else's prints. And that could demonstrate that somebody is taking items from his house and putting it into various places. But it also could demonstrate
nothing. So the problem that you have here is that this is pure conjecture.
No,
this is not evidence that Tyler Robinson is a patsy. It's only evidence that you have conjectured up that, if it's the case that these are the more degraded prints, then therefore that means must be patsy because.
And like, this is also just taking one set of evidence and ignoring everything else. Okay. So like I said before, he's on video camera going to the place. He's going up to the roof. He's scoping the place out. He comes back. He's limping because he has a gun in his pants. He goes up on the roof. He puts the gun together. He takes the shot at the time that the shot happens. Then he runs away. And this nonsense that it's not him, blah, 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 is ridiculous. He's caught on footage. His car is caught on footage. He turns himself in. He tells people it was him, blah, 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 blah. So you're ignoring all that. And you're just saying, oh, well, because there's like these degraded DNA strands, then somebody could have taken his gun and they could have put it in the spot. Yeah, like it negates everything else that we know about the case so far. And this is what they're always doing with this, is they're just taking one thing in isolation when that's not how you build a case. That's not how a trial works. That's not how it works in the system. They don't just come in and go, oh, well, we found this gun and it belongs to Tyler. No, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that they say that goes along with the case that they're going to make. They're going to explain everything laid out in a sequence in a timeline of events that shows him doing all this stuff with the cell phone data, with all the corroborating evidence, including the gun found in the woods that belongs to him.
Dad's fingerprints on gun.
I didn't say must be
describe how this actually links in to Robinson being a patsy.
Okay, I just described that for you, so I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, so I'm going to move on from that. But to just go back to your point about this is not evidence, you can't make that claim because the entire basis for why you think that there's evidence for Tyler Robinson being the person that took the shot is based off of a hearing under Utah 1102 rules, meaning that they are doing the exact same thing that I am doing. This is the state. You said you're here to represent the state. Well, did you watch the preliminary
no, I
hearing?
didn't say I was here to represent the state.
They are not doing the same thing that she is doing. This is ridiculous. And she's about to say that the entire trial is nothing but hearsay under 1102 rule, and that's the same thing she's doing, and that all her stuff would be under 1102 rule, and that is simply not the case, and that is completely misrepresentation of the court system, how it works, the rules of evidence, how they work, and the fact that she says it's all hearsay under 1102 is completely false. They there were some things that were hearsay, so Lance's out of court statements for the recording was done under Rule 1102. That is allowed in. But the officer's testimony of what he saw at that day and what other officers told him that day, that is in court. He's making that is not hearsay. The DNA evidence of the lady who came in and because she did the report, that's not hearsay. There's text messages are not hearsay. There's tons of things that are not hearsay that was in this preliminary hearing that she's now going to say is all hearsay under 1102 rule.
State's position you think is strong and convincing.
What
okay?
I'm here to do is represent my own opinion,
You
which
said
is
in
that
your opening statement,
based on the evidence presented so far by the
the state has
that I find it
presented
convincing.
evidence under Utah's 1102 rule.
But this doesn't demonstrate any patsy
No, that's
behavior.
very important because that rule is hearsay. So you can't say at the same time,
Great.
Candace, you're not allowed to. And what that means under the Utah rule, which I'm sure you know, because I'm sure you watched the preliminary hearing and yourself understand what that means, is that the entire hearing was hearsay. It means none of that information that was presented is going to be allowed. The majority of it, the overwhelming majority of it is not going to be allowed at the trial. They're allowed to present when it's just a probative hearing.
I don't think all the evidence that was put in was here.
That is not true. They didn't bring up stuff that's not going to be allowed in the trial, and everything they brought up was not hearsay under Rule 1102. That is insanity. She just said everything that they just said isn't going to be allowed into trial. That's literally insanity. That is not how it works. It's unbelievably the stuff she says about this preliminary hearing and the rules of evidence and everything, what she's getting confused is because the lawyers kept always saying that they kept standing up and saying, 1102, like we object because they have a standing, and then they the next day just had it be a standing objection to many things because they argued for hearsay to not be allowed, even though it is allowed under 1102. It is allowed under the rules, which Candace is going to say, she understands that part of it. But the reason why they're doing that is not because they know that it's wrong. They know that the judge was going to overrule their objection because but they're setting that precedent so that in the future, years and years and years from now, when there's going through an appeals process or whatever, if it is the case that it just happens that those rules change, they have reserved their objection. Okay, because if you don't object, it doesn't come in to appeals. Okay, so they're reserving that for future in case it ever comes up that it could be valuable. That is literally their job. They are thinking about the future when they do certain things like that. It's for the appeals process because there might be something that has changed that will then help them with their case in that way. A lot of the stuff that they're doing, the defense that they're putting on, isn't to say that Tyler Robinson is innocent. It's to try to get the death penalty taken away. They're arguing against taking off the aggravating factors so the death penalty can get taken off and it's just a murder case. That's what they're arguing for right now. But she doesn't understand that. So she thinks like the entire thing is hearsay and none of it's going to get brought into the trial. Look at her face. Like, oh, she's so annoying, dude. I can't.
Per se.
Okay, you didn't watch this case.
But not only that,
no. This is a huge point. This is crazy that you don't know
for
this.
A fact check if
yes,
all the evidence
we need more
was
than a
put
fact
in.
check. This was every single day. Utah Rule 1102.
They want to go there. So they said there's a medical examiner's explanation of the shooting that's in the back. Rob, if you want to pull it up, and then Candace, if anybody from your team wants to pull something up, no problem as well. But they're requesting it. If you guys got it, pull it up so we can show it. And in the interim, is that it?
Yeah. So I'll read this.
Just what are we looking at, just so we know?
Yeah, so this says the bullet, or at least part of it, sequentially perforated the interior left of Mr. Kirk's neck, strap muscles of the left side of the neck. This is a summary, by the way. Left common cartoid on the left internal external jugular veins. The bullet also obliterated the left side C27 vertebrae, transacted the cervical spinal cord. Medical examiner observed a significant portion of Kirk's cervical spinal cord was traumatically absent. Mr. Kirk suffered from other severe injuries, including bilateral, apical, and posterior intercausal hemorrhages, pulmonary, apical hemorrhages, multiple disruptions to the thyroid, et cetera, et cetera. So the summary of the examination is that he was shot.
Okay.
That was what they were pulling that up for.
Okay. And I'm not disputing that he could have been hit with a projectile. We're not disputing that. So I don't know why this was brought up as a fact check. Could you bring up 1102 Utah Rule? Because this is an unbelievable point that you're making by saying that I am.
They found a 30 class caliber bullet jacket in his body. Okay, so pretending like it was another caliber or a smaller caliber or anything like that, they have said that it is a 30 class bullet. That's what they've said. That's what they pulled out of him as fragments of bullets.
Not allowed to infer off of evidence.
You can infer. I'm trying to follow the inference.
But your entire reason, like you asserted that you believe there's overwhelming evidence on the basis of what we saw in the preliminary hearing. The entire preliminary hearing was hearsay.
Yeah, I'm fine with your inferences.
But no, you just literally said I couldn't do that. Yes, I can.
No, I didn't. I'm just saying from your inference, how do we get to Patsy?
This is how you got to shoot her. The Tyler Robinson did it.
No,
the same way that you got to.
She doesn't know what inference is. Like, she doesn't know what that word means. Like, she has no idea what that means. That's why she's confused. And she is so incredibly dumb. And this whole debate shows that she is so dumb. She has no idea what anything means ever. Like, it's unbelievable.
Just shoot her from that.
Yes, you did. You again. This is something important, so we should pull up a fact check about what the 1102 Utah and under their constitution, for the sake of a preliminary hearing, they do not have to have hard evidence. They don't have to put people on the trial.
They don't have to.
But no, that's why the entire hearing was basically hearsay. Officer Bagley,
but not all of it. Like I said,
it has to be reliable evidence. They can't just pull anything from anywhere and just be like, "Oh yeah, the whole thing is hearsay." That is insanity. It's reliable hearsay. Hearsay has like tons and tons of rules, and then it has exceptions to the rules. The entire thing wasn't hearsay, and it's not like they just brought whatever in. This stuff is going to be brought into trial.
The overwhelming majority, outside of the one that you don't want to give, please don't cut me off. Outside of, that is what's in dispute. It means that your entire brand of saying you don't have evidence falls apart when the entire preliminary hearing is based off of hearsay. In fact, Lance's testimony before they had about an hour debate, actually maybe it was more than an hour debate before he sat, and they said, this is not going to be allowed. You wouldn't even be allowed to do this. We'd be able to cross-examine him. The questions that they're asking Lance are all leading. And what did he say? Well, I'm the magistrate under Utah Constitution, 11.
Yes, the testimony of Lance Twiggs was hearsay because it's an out of court statement, but that is going to be his statement that's going to be used in the court when they bring him in for the trial. Like, that's what he's going to say. And much more. Though we'll talk about all kinds of more things besides just what he did say. Just what they needed for the probable cause. But that doesn't mean the entire preliminary hearing was only hearsay.
Two, it is my job to allow all of this so we can see if the state has enough here that we can then move to a trial, which will then, they would not allow this stuff. They would say we get to cross-examine Lance. Lance
But
just
you're
can't
arguing
willy-nilly
things I'm not
say,
disputing.
no, but the entire substance of your argument is that people can't infer off of evidence.
No,
That's what you're saying
it's
to
not.
me. When you say, Candace,
Here,
you
I'll
can't
give
talk
you the
about the great
argument
inference, which is a
now.
fact.
Yeah, I'm not
and then
saying
infer
that.
off of that,
Didn't say that.
Tyler could have been a patsy.
You're just literally making stuff up. So here's what the position is. I'm asking this.
I'm saying that I think you
just
pull that up.
pulled
Pull that
out
up. I
1102.
am doing exactly what the state did. I'm looking at a piece of evidence and I am saying,
but you're not showing me how you get there.
Can you
from the
describe to
inference.
the audience what
yes.
1102
So this, just so everybody who's watching this at home understands what I'm saying, even if he doesn't. What Andrew is arguing is that I don't have the right to extrapolate from a fact like
just making it up. Just purely making it up. I'm asking based on
Andrew.
Based on
can I
your
show my
inference.
evidence? You just showed yours.
He isn't saying that at all. He's trying to ask you how you are coming to your conclusions, the things in between. You are making, you're taking what you call evidence, and then you are making a conclusion from that, and he's wanting to know the in between, how you got to that conclusion. Like when you make a hypothesis and then you have steps to prove the hypothesis or disprove it, and then you make a conclusion. She's missing all the steps in between, if that makes sense. Like, she doesn't know what he's asking her what he's not saying you can't do this. I just want to know how you're getting to these points, to these conclusions. And that's not what they do either in investigations or trials or in preliminary hearings. They don't just willy-nilly pick stuff and then come to a conclusion that doesn't make logical sense or is like based off of completely off the wall nutty stuff. That's not what they do. They have to show a foundation for every single thing that they are trying to explain to the judge or to the jury or whatever, you know.
Reliable hearsay.
You'll get a chance.
Reliable hearsay in criminal preliminary examinations. The entire preliminary hearing that you just saw was on the basis of reliable hearsay. And what that means essentially is,
no, it wasn't. The entire thing was not hearsay. That is like, I don't understand how she's saying that, how she's getting that the entire thing was nothing but hearsay. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Let's ask Rock, because this is unbelievable. Okay, Candace Owens' claim that the entire preliminary hearing for Tyler Robinson was hearsay is inaccurate and overstated. Utah law rule of evidence 1102 explicitly allows reliable hearsay at criminal preliminary examinations. The judge ruled in advance that prosecutors could rely on it for the limited purpose of establishing probable cause. This is a standard in Utah and many other jurisdictions. Preliminary hearings are not full trials, and the burden is only probable cause, not proof beyond reasonable doubt, and the full confrontation and evidentiary rules of trial do not apply. Evidence presented included both hearsay and non-hearsay material. Live in-person testimony subject to cross-examination from forensic experts, the DNA analysis from the ATF and FBI who personally examined the evidence and testified about their testing and results, investigating officers and others. Direct expert testimony about analysis the witness performed is generally not hearsay. Surveillance videos, photographs, and other physical exhibits were authenticated. And so that includes text messages. The text messages are not hearsay. Those are the party's own texts, the party that's being accused. That's his own words. Those are not, that's not hearsay. Scientific forensic reports, lab results, and the medical examiner's autopsy report expressly listed as forms of reliable hearsay. So those were hearsay. And a recorded interview of Lance Twiggs, which the judge permitted as reliable hearsay rather than requiring live testimony. Substantial portions involved non-hearsay testimony from people who personally handled, tested, or observed key evidence. Okay, so
the people who are making the statements can just say, Patrick told me that he did this on Monday. Patrick's not here. And that is, they can allow that into the hearing. That's just.
No, they can't. They can't just let people say things that aren't true. It's not willy-nilly anything can be said that's not true. It has to be stuff they found in their investigation that they are going to bring forward with be able to lay foundations for in a trial. Like, what she's saying is literally it is so effing insane that she's saying all this stuff and getting away with it, and the frustration is that Andrew doesn't know how these court proceedings work, so he's not as knowledgeable on these topics, so she's just able to say all this stuff, but it's just so incredibly not true. It's just crazy to me.
Because it's just meant to be probative. And so it's the state saying, here's what we have inferred. So you are allowed to take a piece of evidence.
It's just meant to be probative? What? What does he mean by that?
And then you are allowed to infer off of that evidence. Okay. Case in point, that's a demonstration that's a demonstration of what I just did. I said, the prints were the most degraded off of Tyler Robinson. And from that, what I am inferring is that it's plausible that Tyler Robinson was set up.
That doesn't, that's the point in contention.
That's not a point in contention. That's
the point in contention.
It's not a point in contention. If you're saying
it is the point in contention.
It's not the point in contention. I'm telling you that is what the entire hearing allowed for. So the evidence that he is describing, that he is using to argue his case is all based on inference, not fact.
Great.
Inference, not fact. So what they are inferring off of the facts.
So again, we're going to take this, and I'm just going to even grant it because it's irrelevant. I'm asking how you get to the inference that even if you dispute that piece of evidence, that means Patsy. I'm looking for the logical chain for how you get to that inference.
What I am telling you is it's the exact same way that when you tweeted, I think that this evidence is overwhelming. When they say that looks like Tyler Robinson's car, he drives a similar car. Okay. They are inferring that that's Tyler Robinson.
Can you walk me through the inference?
They are not. Oh my God. They are not just going, that looks like Tyler's car. He drives a similar car. They have the license plate. They have the telegraphic, whatever, telemetric data of the car. They have his cell phone data, that will pinpoint him in that car driving around. They have the car driving through the city, on all the cameras that run through the goddamn city. And they have seen him move that car around and place it in the parking lot and get out of it and place it over here and get out of it. They're not just going that there is no way. There's no way that she cannot know this, that people on her team cannot know this, that they've never watched even like a smidgen of trial. They do not just go, this looks like his car. He has a car like this. This must be his car. That is not how it works. They're not inferring. I can't even speak now. Like, I can't even pronounce words. They're not making an inference that, oh, well, because his car looks like this car on this one surveillance camera looks like this guy's car who turned himself in, so it must be him. No, they are following the car throughout the city. They have its license plate. They have the data from the car. They have the data from his cell phone that's pinging exactly where he is in his car as he's driving around. They have all of this. They're not inferring that they just saw his car or a car that looks like his, and so they think it's his car. No, they have way more data than that they're making a conclusion from. There's no way that you can't know this. There's like pretending that this stuff doesn't exist is like insanity. They have all this stuff. It's in search warrant documents that they have tons and tons of this stuff. Location data, Google Maps data, because he actually put in addresses where he was going in his phone. Where his car is. He's with his car and his phone.
So that I understand.
It's not a fact. It's not a fact. When you show a blurry image, which you kept citing that we have
images.
I'm
talking about your inference that the fingerprints, even if they're degraded, equals Patsy. How do you get that inference?
I didn't say it equals Patsy. I think it is enough evidence that it should be explored, which is exactly what this preliminary was in the inverse.
That's not what in dispute. What's in dispute is when you said, I'm using this as evidence that he could have been a Patsy. I'm asking, how do you get the inference to Patsy from that?
Because what I am saying is that it shows that somebody else had more DNA presence on.
She doesn't know what inference is. She doesn't. She has no idea what he's talking about.
on that gun than Tyler Robinson did. So it is plausible, which is all they're doing. They're presenting plausibility based off of
It
the
is not
facts.
plausible.
Okay? It is
That
plausible
is not plausible.
that somebody just took his gun and put it there. That's it.
Is there equally
That's how it works.
and is there equally 100 other plausible explanations?
I think that's the reason why most people are exploring when things don't make sense.
Got it.
So yes, at the beginning of that, this is how the court process works.
So
just so we're clear.
Okay, so she's saying when things don't make sense. There's nothing that doesn't make sense about that. Degradation of his DNA does not mean that he didn't handle the gun recently, like she's trying to say. That doesn't so it actually doesn't not make sense. Okay, like there's nothing that doesn't make sense. She's saying when things don't make sense, and it's because they're either pretending or they really are this dumb that it doesn't make sense that there's degradation on the DNA of the trigger guard. We're only talking, there's no degradation on the rest of the gun. Okay, the rest of the gun, all over the gun that he's holding, that he's carrying, that he's shoving down his pants, all over the rest of it, there is no degradation, and he's the major contributor. We're only talking about one swab who, God only knows, sometimes the swabs do weird stuff. Okay. So we're talking about the trigger and the trigger guard. Okay, so that's the trigger guard is the thing that's around the trigger, so you don't just like, you have to put your finger into the hole and then pull your trigger. That's the trigger guard. It's like very small metal pieces. Okay, maybe he did wipe it, who knows? Okay, that's all we're talking about. The rest of the gun has no degradation, and he's the majority contributor. Okay, so no, it actually doesn't not make sense. It's not something so crazy that we would have to jump to he's a patsy. Like,
If there's 100 other plausible explanations, then Candace, why is it that we should go with this idea that it was a patsy?
I'm not saying that we should go with the idea that it was a patsy. I am saying that there is.
I thought that was the whole defense. Your whole claim.
No,
today.
my whole claim was that there is more evidence that he is set up as a patsy.
How does that equal evidence of patsy?
I don't know how many times I can say this. Like I'm saying that I am using the exact same mechanism that you are accepting for some reason in the Utah courtroom.
Yeah.
Right. To say, I'm going to look at the evidence and I'm going to infer an alternative theory. So you just saw the states and you're accepting it. And they have not presented any concrete facts. You listed on your own Twitter that what you found to be convincing was something that looked like his car pulled into the driveway, a blurry image.
No, I didn't.
The standard white guy coming up the steps that could literally be anyone.
This never happened.
Can we get a fact check on that? Can we pull up his tweet where he goes over the floor? I didn't say
that's what convinced me.
When you actually didn't say it's what convinced me, but you said this is the evidence that you found to be overwhelming. And you named, I believe, actually 5 things. I think you said it was his car. You said it was.
Well, there's multitudes of things that I find.
You just said you didn't say it, so we're going
evidence.
to get a fact check on that. You did.
Go ahead.
You said the blurry images coming up the steps. Quite literally, when Officer Bagley testified, they talk about when I'm talking about making inference. This is the most, I thought was the.
Those images are not blurry. I don't know why they keep saying this. I have watched tons of trials that involve surveillance footage of some kind, and you don't rely on only their surveillance footage. There's tons of other stuff that they're going to show. They're not just going to have surveillance footage and a blurry picture of his car. Okay, there's going to be tons of other stuff that corroborate all that. But this footage isn't even that bad. It's like compared to footage I've seen in other cases, this footage is actually pretty clear and good. So clear and good, in fact, that he was able to be recognized by his mother, his father, and another person we know of, which was a coworker who sent him the pictures that they released and said, bro, why are you on these surveillance footage at UVU? Then in the Discord, they were joking that it looked like him. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to have to get rid of this gun I have laying around, like making a joke. So it was clearly clear enough that people were suspecting that it was him in the footage. Okay. So you can't have people recognize him from the footage, the stills that were released, and then at the same time say that they're so blurry that nobody can tell that it's him. These two things do not logically fit together. Okay. So are we saying that the friend, the coworker that texted him, that he then texts Lance and says, "Oh my gosh, my coworker's texting me about the surveillance footage. Are we going to pretend like that person isn't on it? They're getting paid by the Jews or whoever the hell you by Erica Kirk. She paid that guy off to send a text message saying, why are you on surveillance footage at that UVU? Like, this is what I mean. Like no, this is not what they do in court. In court, they don't go, oh, look at this blurry car footage and look at this blurry footage. Okay, that's him, blah, blah, blah. Hands washed. That's not what they do.
Most absurd testimony I've ever heard. And pardon me, it was actually David Hull. They asked him a question. How did you know the guy in the maroon shirt was the same as the guy that came up the stairs later that was wearing the American flag black shirt? And he said, they're wearing the same shoes.
Why is that absurd?
That's how you decided these two are the same people. Oh, wow. What a sign.
In the beginning, yes. Oh my gosh. It's not how they determine it now. Like they don't like now they're not like, okay, we know it's him because of the shoes. He's talking about the beginning of his investigation when they're looking through the surveillance footage and they're comparing everyone and everything. It's actually not abnormal for them to look at shoes. This is a thing that they do. So in the beginning, before Tyler's probably even turned himself in, they're examining these surveillance footage and they're noticing things like the shoes. That's what they're trained to do. It is not absurd for her to sit there and say, this is the most absurd testimony I've ever heard in my life. That is literally insane. I honestly don't know, like, if she's actually, like, she actually might just be like this stupid, you guys. Like, she actually might just be this stupid, and it's not, like, as nefarious as we've all been thinking. She might actually be this incredibly dumb. I mean, I don't understand, like, what's going on here. I can't tell, but, like, when I watched this, I was just like, I got the impression that she's actually not lying, and she's just this fucking dumb. Like, she's this fucking stupid. They're not, the officer is not saying, this is how we know now. He's saying, when I was reviewing the footage, this is what I was looking for. These two guys looked similar build, and they had the same damn shoes on. That's what they do. Oh my gosh. Like, what do you guys think? Do you guys think she's, like, just this fucking dumb?
Scientific. They're both wearing Converses. Okay. That's an absurd thing to say. That is not evidence that these are the same people if we're both wearing Converses. That was what he said. That's what flew on the stand.
But I still don't understand how that would be absurd. If somebody,
it's an absurd thing.
For instance, if somebody were to change their clothes but keep the same shoes on, wouldn't you utilize the shoes to try to track that person?
The idea that on a college campus, two people wearing this totally different outfits, but both wearing Converses can't happen is such an absurdity that I don't even need to, like, argue that. I'm just going to let people. Why is it absurd? Just concede that point. Obviously, it's absurd thing to say.
I'm not
I know
sure,
these are the same people because they're both wearing Converse.
Yeah, I'm not sure if in context that's what happened, but
it
even
is.
if it is,
you can get a fact check on it.
But even if it is, again,
and it was
if we're utilizing inferences, whenever we're dealing with logic and we're dealing with making a logical inference, we're going to take the entire collaboration of evidence and then we're going to make inferences from that. You would do that with any type of logical proposition. Otherwise, you could never have a true or false claim.
You just told me I couldn't.
So when that never happened. You're just making stuff up. So anyway, when we're talking about logical inferences, what I'm looking for is the logical inferences that you have that Tyler Robinson's a patsy based on the totality of evidence that you have.
We can keep going through your other evidence. We should find his tweet where he lists the reasons that he was convinced.
So let's start with the 30-6. I think that's fine.
Okay, so, oh my God, I should write this down. Okay, because her prompt was that she was supposed to have overwhelming evidence that he's a patsy. So far, her overwhelming evidence is that the entire hearing was hearsay, untrue. So the degraded print means that the gun was put in the woods by somebody else other than Tyler. And then the testimony about the shoes.
Your team's looking for, do you remember how long ago that was?
The tweets of the 5, did you delete it? Or no?
No,
did you delete
tweets.
tweets? Okay, cool. I just look for, he said it was his car. It was his, it was the car, and it was definitely the staircase photos, and it was when the trial was going on.
Okay, she has it. Perfect. If you got, Skylar has it. If you want to pull it up so we can see it.
Somebody said, so give me the clear evidence right here. I want you to provide it right here. All I heard from the investigator was, we believe this to be Tyler Robinson. Is belief something?
What does this have to do with anything? So a tweet that he wrote at some point, like, is now being held up against him. What if he believes more? What if he saw more stuff? What if he was not listing everything and he was just, because it's just a tweet to somebody. You're not going to list every single thing. So now what the hell does this have to do with anything? What does this have to do with Tyler Robinson being a patsy or him showing the state has more evidence? What is this about? This is so weird.
You go as a fact. You wrote the car pulling in. That's a totally blurry image. Robinson getting
No,
out
it's
of it.
not.
You have no idea if that's Tyler Robinson. The fact that he is seen 4 other times on camera, the fact being just a standard white boy with brown hair was seen walking up staircase. The DNA on the roof, we should discuss that. And on the screwdriver that he left behind, it's overwhelming, man.
Yeah, but that's not an exhaustive list.
Well, just so we're clear, you did tweet it.
But it's not an exhaustive.
Yeah,
well,
but just
you
5
said
seconds ago, you should concede.
You said I only said this one thing and said that was overwhelming, actually.
That's not what I said.
It is. You could even pull
Patrick,
your
did
own
I say
clip.
that?
Can you fact check if that was said or not? I did not hear her say
So the
this.
thing is funny here is like we still aren't getting to any of these inferences. So
Why are you pivoting?
so
But just say you were wrong. It's cool to just say I was wrong.
I'm not wrong. So back to the tweet aspect here. It was really funny. That's not an exhaustive list of what I find it.
I didn't say it was exhaustive. I just said you said it.
And on top of it, well, no, you didn't. You said that I only said this one thing and then said based on.
What does that have to do with anything? What does this have to do with anything? This debate is so bizarre. Like, I don't understand what this even has to do with anything. Who cares what he tweeted? Like, what does his tweets have to do with the state's case or Tyler Robinson being a patsy?
On that, it's over. Well, I didn't. You didn't mention that I mentioned the screwdriver, DNA, all these other things. You never mentioned any of that. So no, you're actually incorrect there. But on top of that, moving over to the actual evidence itself.
Are you
Yes, I'm okay. Anyway, back to the evidence
if you're
itself.
Okay.
Yes,
Actually, I'm glad you're asserting that you're okay. I wasn't worried about your health. I'm just saying that I just said you tweeted this. You said, no, I didn't. We got a fact check. And now you're like just going to gaslight me and pretend that I said.
There's no gaslighting.
It wasn't exhaustive. I never said that. I just said you did say this.
Zero gaslighting.
I didn't say you couldn't have said more, but I would like to address what you
this
said
is
in
your
that tweet.
time. If this is how you want to spend it interrogating my position, you can do it that way.
I'm just addressing what you asserted on your Twitter was like the hard evidence that convinced you was overwhelming. That's literally
that's
your
not
debate
what
claim.
you said. That's not actually, in fact, what happened in that exchange.
In State's Exhibit 12.4?
Yes, there is additional footage of him on campus, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I've sped this up. We're going to watch a little bit of this. This is them talking about the footage and about to play it.
For UVU surveillance video during each of those 4 visits?
Yes.
Or those other 3 visits, I guess.
Yes, on each occasion we attempted to follow the movements of the individual throughout campus.
And did you in fact see Mr. Robinson on campus in surveillance video that is not included in State's Exhibit 12.4?
Yes, there is additional footage of him on campus, yes.
Okay. I'm going to have displayed on your monitor what you're going to see is a paused or a still image. And I'm going to ask if you recognize what you see that now, Agent Hall?
I do, yes.
Okay. Do you recognize what's displayed on your monitor?
Yes, it's footage from the university that was provided to us, particularly of the parking structure.
Okay. Does it appear to be State's Exhibit 12.4?
It does, yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have this video run. And if you don't mind, as it's running, I'm probably going to be asking you some questions. And so this video has no audio. Is that right?
No, there's no audio on the cameras.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start the video.
Your Honor, it's just not up on the screen yet. Maybe
Let's go ahead and put it on all screens. No, I appreciate it. Is so it is admitted and may be published to the screens.
This is not blurry footage. Okay, this is not blurry footage. All right, they can sit there. These mother effers can sit there and gaslight us over and over again and say that this footage is blurry. This is not blurry footage. Okay, this is not what blurry footage looks like. This is actually very clear, good security camera footage.
And just want to make sure it's on your screen, agent. All right. Mr. Sturgill, you may proceed.
Appreciate that, Judge. Thank you. Go ahead. Okay, what are we seeing here, Agent Hall?
That's a vehicle that is believed to belong to Mr. Robinson arriving in the parking garage on campus.
At what time in the morning? What time of the day?
Okay, now they have the raw footage, so they could zoom in really well on that license plate and read it, okay? Because they have the raw footage, not just footage that the the camera person in the courtroom is filming this off of a screen. Okay. And then I'm watching it on a screen. And then you guys are watching it off of my screen. Okay. But the raw footage, they can actually, there's forensic tools that can clear everything up, zoom in on things and make it not just blow out, et cetera, et cetera. So they have his license plate, obviously.
It's approximately 8:30 in the morning on September 10th, 2025.
And what leads you to believe that this particular vehicle belongs to Mr. Robinson?
Information that was provided.
Explain to me how this is blurry footage. I really would like to know.
Regards to driver's license and Department of Motor Vehicle records, the vehicle fits the description of a vehicle owned by Mr. Robinson.
Is there anything unique about that vehicle that stands leads you to believe that this particular
Robinson arriving in the parking garage on campus?
at what time in the morning? What time of the day?
It's approximately 8:30 in the morning on September 10th, 2025.
And what leads you to believe that this particular vehicle belongs to Mr. Robinson?
Information that was provided regards to driver's license and Department of Motor Vehicle records, the vehicle
Driver's license and motor vehicle registration.
fits the description of a vehicle owned by Mr. Robinson.
Is there anything unique about that vehicle that stands out to you?
The shape of the vehicle is very distinct, but predominantly the wheels were very distinctive on this version of the vehicle.
Now what do we see?
The driver of the vehicle exits the vehicle and then walks on foot to exit the parking garage. And it's the individual in the red T-shirt and the shorts and the shoes.
And do you believe you recognize who that person is?
Yes,
Who is that?
I believe that's Tyler Robinson.
All right. Where does he go from there?
He heads out of the parking garage on foot into the campus and actually goes to the quad area of the campus. At that time, he makes contact with some representatives from TPUSA.
Okay, so this is not blurry footage. Okay, this is actually very good looking surveillance footage. There are like millions of, I mean, like if you have ever watched a trial before in your life that shows security footage, it is always way worse than this. This is actually very good quality security footage camera. And like I said, the raw footage is even better where they can actually zoom in and not have it blow out into like just gray pixels like it would for us because it's a screen off of a screen off of a screen off of a screen. God.
I was here for it.
So what's your position here?
Yeah. So my position is that based on all of the evidence, which has been demonstrated, at least all the evidence to my knowledge, that I am actually not seeing anything that's compelling as an alternative theory. I'm not seeing anything which is convincing me of something otherwise than what the state is presenting as evidence. That's my position. If
Okay.
that's what you're asking me.
So just going back to what you did actually tweet, is it fair for me to ask questions about that? That's
Is that the only
evidence.
tweet you're going to ask me about?
Well, we're addressing your claim that the evidence is overwhelming, and this is a tweet where you listed what you felt was overwhelming. I think that's fair.
but not
right? I feel like
sure,
that's fair.
but not exhaustive. Just so you know.
And I never said it was
Okay.
exhaustive,
Go
even though
ahead.
you said I did.
Sure, whatever you want.
But yeah, so going back to that, all of that, as you say to me, well, Candace, why are you addressing and making inferences off of the testimony?
No, I never asked you why. You're making inferences. I asked you how, with the inference you made, you got to the conclusion.
Okay, so I would like to know how you got to the conclusion, and I'm just going to throw it right back at you because
Yeah,
for some
that's
reason
fair.
you permit yourself to do it, and that's what I'm demonstrating is that you permit yourself to do it,
Mhm.
and then you say when I do it, it's a conspiracy, right?
No.
How are you able to infer off of blurry staircase images that is Tyler Robinson?
Yeah. So in that particular case, what you do is you take that evidence, you combine it with other evidence. So it's not just that Tyler Robinson is seen in the staircase.
Why are you calling him Tyler Robinson in the staircase? That's what I want to get to.
Yeah, because I mean, we'll just use this. If you don't agree that that's Tyler Robinson, then you would just have to humor me. I think it is, so I'm using the name.
But why do you think it is? Because you make everybody, you
That's
call them
literally what I'm
conspiracy
trying to explain
theorists.
to you.
Okay.
So if you're asking for my inference, why I think it's Tyler Robinson is because Tyler Robinson said in his text messages, you'll be able to see me on security footage at the campus. Said it in his own messages. On top of that, Twigs, yes, you can pull them up if you want to fact check that. He did say. On
Yeah, I
top
would.
of
I'm sorry. I
that,
actually think I really did miss that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I
Yeah.
don't remember him saying you're going to see me in.
I'm
in footage.
paraphrasing,
Can
but
we
it was
pull that
close
up?
to
Yeah,
it.
If
I
you
don't-
may
I
have
think
it.
that's
By the
not
way,
Pull it up.
Twigs himself said that he
You're gonna
had
see me in
some
the staircase?
that he had some
How the fuck does she not know that? She has been investigating this case for 11 months. How does she not know what is in the actual evidence? What they have in evidence showing that he texted, that he said in his own text, in his own words. Well, how does she not know that? Like, she knows so very little about this case. It's so bizarre. And then the stuff that she does know, she doesn't know it correctly, or she says it's not. Like, oh, that's blurry footage. No, it's not. It's not fucking blurry footage. What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? Where are you getting that this is blurry footage? I mean, I don't understand. Where are you getting that it's ridiculous to say that they were wearing the same shoes? And that's how we can tell when we're looking at the security footage. Not the only way they can tell, but when they're looking at the security footage, that's the type of stuff you would naturally look for when you're doing an investigation as a police officer. Oh my God.
Maybe a tiny bit of doubt, but it sure looked like Tyler Robinson inside of this various surveillance footage that he saw.
So Lance, sorry.
Hang on. So there's multiple reasons why it is that I believe that that's Tyler Robinson, not just because of blurry footage.
Did you have a dream? Just kidding.
No, it's because I combined multitudes of evidences.
Okay, so let's address those multitude of evidences. The first one we're working on a fact check on because I do not ever remember him tweeting. That's me in the staircase. I mean, or texting. Yeah. That's me in the staircase. I think that I didn't say that. I said I literally didn't. What I said is that he texted over, "You'll be able to see me in footage at UVU," and I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. Yeah, could we get a fact check on that? The second thing you said was Lance's testimony, and actually what Lance says is, "I'm not 100%."
I agree.
But in terms of what he wears, again, pointing out the absurdity, he wears Converses, he wears sneakers. If his boyfriend is not 100%, I'd like to understand why Andrew Wilson is overwhelmed by it. That's what I'm trying to get to. And lastly,
okay, so she's totally misrepresenting Lance's testimony. So I wonder if that's in any of this. Okay, so I've seen tons and tons of people saying this all over Twitter, like, oh, Lance Twigg said he wasn't even for sure. No, that's not what he said. You're completely misrepresenting the whole thing.
This meeting is to use your statement here instead of your testimony at a preliminary hearing. Understand that? Okay, so in order to do that, I need to place you under oath and also give you an admonition about false statements. Okay. First.
Okay, so this is really important. So he is going to put him under oath, and he's going to tell him about making false statements. Now, later on in this debate, Candace is going to say that because this was just an under 1102 rule hearsay thing, that Lance Twiggs can say whatever he wants, and he has immunity, and he could just get up there and lie and say whatever he wants. That's not true. He's under oath. He's given the admonishment for lying. And also, if he does lie, he loses his immunity, like totally. Like if you lie under the use immunity that they give you or the other blanket immunity, they can pull that immunity from you, and they can and will, and then they can charge you for whatever they want of the testimony that you said. And so so she completely misrepresented that as a fact too. Like, no, you can't just lie and say willy-nilly whatever you want. It's unbelievable that she even said something like that. I don't know. I don't know if she's like literally this fucking stupid, or she just doesn't know, or if she's being like nefarious. I honestly can't tell at this point.
You do solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give in this issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
I also need to notify you that you are notified that statements you are about to make may be presented to a magistrate or a judge in lieu of your sworn testimony at a preliminary examination. Any false statement you make and that you do not believe to be true may subject you to criminal punishment as a Class A misdemeanor. You understand that?
Yes.
It potentially could be used as for punishment as a higher offense as obstruction of justice. In addition, I just want to make sure that our recording here is clear that you've also been given a federal agreement and a state agreement granting you immunity from prosecution for materials that you discuss now. Do you understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. First, we're going to cover some of the things that you've already talked about, but to make it as part of this record. First, what's your name?
Full name with middle name or just first and last?
First and last is fine.
Okay, my name is Lance Twiggs.
And do you know Tyler Robinson?
Yes, I do. Well, yeah, I do.
And this is the same Tyler Robinson that's been charged with the shooting of Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
And would you say when you first met Tyler?
I think it was 2023. I've known him longer than that, though. That was, I think, the first time I met him in person.
Okay. And will you describe your relationship with Tyler when you first met him anyway?
When I first met him, I didn't know him super well. He was just a new roommate. So I knew he knew my friend group and I knew he liked playing games, but that's about it when we first, when he first moved in.
Okay. Before we go on, I realized my mic was muted at the outset. Would you turn on your microphone? Okay. I'm going to repeat those admonitions just to make sure we got recorded. Okay, so again, I placed you under oath. Just to make a record, I'm going to do it again. You do solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give in this issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
And again, I'm going to give you the false statement admonition.
Sorry, hold on. If they're saying that it's echoing, so
I think this one's mic is on.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, you don't unmute my mic, but that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we should be good. All right. Great. All right. Okay, sorry about that interruption. All right, so you said when you first met, you were roommates?
Yeah.
Okay. And then at some point, your relationship progressed to something more than just roommates, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
I think we started dating 2 or 3 months after he moved in.
Okay. And where did you live at that time?
St. George, in an apartment complex.
And is that apartment the same place you lived when on September 10th?
Yes.
When you lived there with Tyler, were you in the same room? Did you live in the same room or different rooms?
No, separate rooms.
And at that time, let's say September of 2025, what were you doing with your life? Were you working, school?
I was working. I was doing like bathtub and shower repair and stuff in new construction.
Okay. How about Tyler?
I think he was both working. I think he was working for an electrician company then, and he was also in a trade school for being a, I don't know, higher ranking electrician. I'm not sure how the trade system works for that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think he was both.
What was his typical work day like?
I think he'd leave around 7 generally and get back around 3 to 4, depending on where the job was and how long it was for the day. And then on certain days of the week during school, semesters, he would then later in the day, I think around 5 or 6, go to school. So yeah.
Okay. Let's jump to September 10th. Did he spend the night in the apartment the night of September 9th into September 10th?
Yeah, he did. Yes.
Do you know when he left the apartment on September 10th?
I don't know an exact time. I just know he left early. I heard him leaving, and he just said he had a long drive to work that day, so he was leaving early.
Okay, so early. Any guess as to what when that was?
I don't know. I would have thought it was 5 a.m. because that's when an early work day was for him, but it was probably more like 4.
Okay.
I'm going to spell this down just to make sure that
I can do that.
You're right in front of your laptop.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so what time did you get up on September 10th?
Probably 12 to 1 p.m.
You didn't have to work that day?
No.
And did you hear from Tyler? Did he call or text you before then?
No, he sent that message in the group chat I mentioned, but he didn't message me directly at all that day.
Okay. When did you first hear from him on September 10th?
It was at 11 o'clock with that automated message.
Okay, 11 p.m.
Yeah. planning to go hunting with his family. Yeah, I don't remember exactly when.
Remember how I was engraving bullets. What about this? He asks you here, remember how I was engraving bullets. Was he engraving bullets before this?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when, but he had said he was planning to go hunting with his family. And he asked me for if we had a Dremel because he said he wanted to engrave messages on bullets. And I just told him where Dremel was.
Okay, so you have to completely ignore so much from this testimony to so they're just skipping literally to the fact at the end where they ask show him pictures, and then they are saying that he said he thought maybe it could be him and that he wasn't necessarily certain, which is completely untrue. But they skip over all this testimony about all this stuff that he saw him do, which was like engraving bullets. And it's going to go on here, and I will point it out that you're completely dismissing the entire rest of the testimony that also implicates Tyler Robinson.
I told him to make sure he doesn't set off a bullet on accident in the house.
So, are they trying to say, the bullets found in the gun were also planted? Well, then why was he engraving them? Do you see what I'm saying? The logical, reasonable conclusions to what's being said here and what the rest of the evidence is leads to the fact that Tyler Robinson was the person on the staircase going up to the roof.
But I didn't really think about it until then.
How long before September 10th was this that he asked about the Dremel?
I don't remember because he'd been talking about the hunting/camping trip for a couple months, but I don't remember when he was specifically asking to engrave the bullets. So
are we talking a year before?
Oh no, not that long. It would have been, I'd say, at most a month before this was when he was asking.
Okay. Okay. All right. You talked about the note that he left. I want to bring this up, and I should say that these text messages that we've been looking at here are Bates number 54. Okay, the notes have been titled 16.3 with a note, and this is Bates number 58. Do you recognize that on the screen there?
Yeah.
What do you recognize it as?
That was the note under his keyboard that he was referring to in the first text of that chain.
Okay, so where did you find this?
On his desk underneath his computer keyboard.
And I assume you read it.
Yeah.
And then what did you do with it after you read it?
I believe I just put it back down on the desk after I took a picture of it.
Okay. And again, the time you read it was probably around 11 o'clock or so on the 10th.
Yes.
The night of September 10th.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And did you ever see that again after you placed it back on his desk?
No, I don't think I did.
And that was a desk in his bedroom?
Yes.
And that's a separate bedroom than your bedroom?
Yeah.
And now I want to go to what's been titled 16.2. And do you recognize this series of messages here?
Yeah, that was the server of his friend that I was mentioning.
Okay, and this is your phone again?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you recognize it because the big crack up at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a server. Is this Discord?
Yeah, this is Discord.
And who are members of this server? I don't want names, just generally, who are these people?
This is his friend group. They play D&D together every week.
Okay. And I just want to scroll through this to make sure that you get a chance to take a look at it.
And I also just want to say here, so he's talking about his friends that he plays D&D with that would literally come to their apartment to do such a thing. And that one of the friends of the friend group reached out to Turkey Tom and gave him all these Discord messages and tons of other stuff that Turkey Tom made an entire video of way back when all this started, very close to the beginning. And pictures of their apartment and pictures of weird stuff everywhere, like wires like wrapped together and crazy stuff drawn all over everything, and it was nuts. And the descriptions of what was going on in that house by the friend that came over for the games and stuff was literally insane. So that's another person, a random person, a friend group corroborating all this stuff as well.
Can you go to the next page?
Or yes,
So Tyler Icom, who's that?
that's Tyler Robinson.
These other people are just others that are members of the server.
Yes.
Jug, Barnaby, Marina, DM. Yes.
Yeah, like DM means Dungeon Master. So these are like, most of them are names they're using in the game they're playing currently.
Got it. Yeah, it looks like the last text from Tyler looks like it's 8 p.m. And do you know what day this would have been? 8 p.m. on the 10th or the 11th?
I would think that would be the 11th. Because at least I think so, because I don't think on the 10th that he messaged anyone before me at like 11. So.
And he turned himself in on the 11th, right?
I thought so, yeah.
Okay. So again, we're just going to go through this so that we have a record of the messages. Is that an accurate recording of that thread?
To my knowledge, yes.
And that was sent, looks like between September 10th and September 12th. Looks like the last day on this is September 12th. Screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So again, those messages covered from September 10th to the evening of September 11th. Now, September 11th, what time did you see Tyler on September 11th?
Yes.
When did you first see him on September 11th? So this is the day after the shooting.
Yeah, I saw him when I woke up. Like I said, he was up and around doing a lot of stuff around the house. And then I think I saw him after that message where I said I'll come home and say I'm doing laundry, because I didn't want him going to my parents' house right then when he said there was probably cops outside. So I went back home and it was just him there, and I said bye to him, and then he drove off. So I just went back to my parents' house.
So he acted erratically. Was he pacing? Was he just sitting down, relaxing?
No, he was walking around a lot.
Right, and that's within the home. And did he talk about what he had done?
Didn't go into detail. I just asked him in person if what he said was true the night before, and he said it was. I started crying a little.
If what he said if what he said the night before was true and he said it was, then he like shows visible signs of being upset. This is all stuff that would make it logically plausible and most likely that was Tyler Robinson on the security camera footage, because why else would he be upset? Why else would he be thinking they were after him? Why else would all of this stuff that Lance is reporting be happening? He knows what happened. He received the text messages from Tyler. They were talking that night while he was waiting to get the gun. Why would he be trying to get the gun if he was put there by somebody else and he was just a patsy? Do you see what I'm saying? This is basic 101 court stuff here. This is how cases are put together. This guy knows that Tyler did it. Tyler knows that he did it. This is what's going on. So to discount all of this and just say at the end he didn't seem to recognize him is unbelievable.
And said he wishes he hadn't done it. And then kept going around and
says he wishes he hadn't done it.
Just doing stuff, I think, to keep himself busy or distracted or something. Yeah.
By the way, the defense is going to use that as mitigating factors of showing that he showed remorse to try to get his life saved.
Did he talk about what he was going to do next?
And then eventually he said that he would talk to his parents or turn himself over.
Okay. And when you left.
By the way, the judge, the defense team asked for some of this stuff to be redacted. That's why we're seeing like moments of blankness, moments of them talking with the screen blank, because they didn't want us to see the letter, even though we had it anyway, and blah, 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 blah. So that's what that is, in case you didn't know.
Was that how you left understanding he was going to turn himself in or go to his parents' house?
Yeah, and I didn't really want to be at our apartment while any of that was happening, regardless of what.
So here's testimony of Lance being told by Tyler that he's going to turn himself in, right? which Candace and them also say that that could all be false and that he didn't actually turn himself in, and that instead he was told by some guy they say is like the family friend that they say was like an ex cop that was like undercover, and he came to him and he told him, I know that's you from the footage. And so like none of that is, that's all made up. None of that is true.
Went down. Okay. Okay, before he came home, had you seen the press releases, any of the media on this?
I'd seen one Instagram like link a friend of mine had sent in our group chat, but I hadn't really looked
Okay, they sent that in the group chat because they said it looked like Tyler.
into it at all.
And had you seen the images that were released of the suspect?
I did the next day. I don't think I saw any on the 10th.
I'm going to show you a couple of those images. Okay, I'm on the FBI's website. You can see the URL there at the top. This is a press release about this event. And here on the screen, you see these, looks like there's 2 rows of 3 images.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize the person in these images?
I wouldn't say it with 100% certainty just because of camera quality, but that looks like him in terms of the shoes he's wearing, the sunglasses. I don't think I'd specifically seen him wearing that hat, but he was usually wearing a hat, and then jeans. So it definitely, especially the bottom, the last, look like him.
So he said, especially the bottom 2 look like him. Like, especially the bottom 2 look like him.
Oh, they do look like Tyler Robinson.
They do look like Tyler Robinson.
And you talked about that with your friends, right? This is like him.
Yeah, his friends. Yeah, I don't know if I talked. I don't remember if I talked about it with any of my friends. And then since I didn't have my phone after that for a while, and I still am not using social media, I don't know on my friends' end.
Okay, so that's good enough. But she's completely, her and all her little ilk have completely misrepresented that entire testimony. It's just unbelievable.
I would like to remind you that Lance's statement would not be permitted. This was a huge part of the preliminary hearing, that they were leading. All the questions that were asked of him were leading, so they would be struck down at the actual.
Okay, this is not true. This is just not true. They're going to bring him to court and they're going to ask him these same questions, and they will ask them in a way that is proper. And then the defense might say, oh, that's leading. And then if the judge sustains that, they'll ask it in a different way. But the testimony that he said and everything that was redacted that he said and everything else that he knows that he wasn't asked in that is going to be asked in the trial, and he will say, they will get everything they need said out of him. They're not going to bring him there and then want to ask him about that day, and then the defense say that's leading, you can't ask him that, and then it's like not going to be brought in. And the judge is just going to move on. No, they will get out everything that Lance Twigg knows about that day, about text messages, about Discord messages, about what Tyler was doing, blah, 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 all that stuff, all the redacted stuff that we couldn't hear. All that will get brought out in court. There is no possible way that it wouldn't. Okay. So I don't know why she's saying that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, that will be in court, in front of a jury. Yes. Yes. Of course it will. What are you talking about?
Trial. Mm-hmm. And also, I would like to remind you that he got use immunity for that. Use immunity.
I understand.
Which means like...
That happens, by the way, all the time in these cases.
And I'm wondering why it particularly happened for Lance in this testimony. And I would also like to point out that something that's remarkable about this, again,
why would he talk to them without use immunity? Why would he do that? That doesn't make any sense. He would have been advised by a lawyer to do that.
To my perspective, that Lance has a lot more, which I have said many times, Lance has a lot more involvement than the feds are letting us know. I think more.
We don't know any of that. Why would we assume that he knows more than what he's saying? We have no proof of that yet. We have to wait and find out.
Going to come out either. Because they interviewed him on September 11th. And then for whatever reason, just ahead of what was supposed to be slated as the preliminary hearing, which was initially supposed to be in May, they bring.
It wasn't for whatever reason. They brought him in on a Zoom call to do an 1102. They did that for the 1102. They couldn't take, they will be able to bring in his statement and everything into court by bringing him in. And they'll have the statement that he made. And then from that, they will ask him all the questions of everything he told them. This isn't weird. Nothing is weird here. I don't understand why she's saying it's weird.
Him back to do this interview, which in my opinion should have never been allowed. And I actually agree with the defense that it's a violation of his constitutional rights not to allow them to have cross-examined him. But I understand Utah 11.
It's not. It's not. They're just saying that in case it is someday. They're just saying that for the record. They know that it's not. This is what defense attorneys do. They know that it's not. I agree with his defense attorneys that shouldn't have been allowed in. That is insane. Of course it's allowed in. They're allowed to let it in.
No, to do what you do, it's all hearsay. But to allow it in that way for him to just be able to also have use immunity, knowing that he's not going to get in trouble. He could literally get up there and lie about anything, and he's not going to get in trouble because the use immunity was given to him in April.
That is not what use immunity means. It doesn't mean you can just get up and say whatever you want and you won't get in trouble. He was under oath. He got put under oath. He got told about making false statements. If he makes false statements or lies, then the use immunity gets taken away. It's not, use immunity doesn't mean that you can lie. She doesn't know what anything means. She doesn't know. She thinks that use immunity, that they gave him use immunity, means he can like lie without impunity. That he can make up stuff and they can't use it against him. That's literally what she thinks it is.
I believe April 28th is when they gave that testimony to the defense. I think they shot it in like April 20th of 2026. That is not compelling to me for somebody who has use immunity to give a testimony and to say, I'm not really sure, but definitely like he wears jeans and stuff.
That's not what he said.
He did. Actually, you can get a fact check on that.
Yeah, that's
Skylar,
not,
I think
he
you
said
pulled
much
it up
more
if you
than
want to. So a couple things we have. We have Rule 801, Tyler's messages, that says it's not hearsay. But first, go to what Candace is asking about. Skylar, I think you have it. You just text me if you want to pull it up. You said you have the text. If we can put that up on the screen. Thank you.
It was me. Look at the pictures from the surveillance footage. It was me. Okay. I literally said to you, it's not an oof. I said I didn't remember this. And I'm happy to have a fact check on that. Okay. I didn't call for the fact check saying you're wrong. I literally said I don't remember that.
Well, I'm just saying to you, like, I'm trying to be concise for you.
It was me. Look at the pictures from the surveillance footage. It was me. I'm serious. Okay, so this is all from him texting the Discord message. So it says, hey guys, I have bad news for you. It was me at UVU. I'm sorry for all this. I'm surrendering my through a sheriff friend in a few moments. Then they must have said, oh my God, no, it's not you. There's no way. Are you joking? And he's like, it was me. Look at the pictures from the surveillance footage. It was me. I'm serious. Like, my God, how many confessions did he make? You guys, like, how many confessions? This is like what I'm talking about. This is insanity to imply otherwise, that this is not a straightforward case that they have tons of evidence on. I mean, just all these confessions alone.
And then also bring the 801 that you just said. What was the other one?
Yep, the 801. Tyler message is saying it's not hearsay, if you have that as well.
Why are they bringing up rule? What did they bring up? 801? Isn't this a federal? What did they bring up?
Wait, what are we saying is not hearsay?
Statements that are not hearsay. A statement that meets the following conditions is not hearsay.
It was hearsay. They said it in the trial.
Hang on. Okay. Is consistent with the declarant's testimony and the declarant denies having made the statement or has forgotten, or is consistent with the declarant's testimony and is offered to rebut the express implied charge that the declarant recently fabricated or acted in recent improper influence or motive in testifying. So then wouldn't that mean that a bunch of this wasn't hearsay?
So the issue with his
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Would that mean that a bunch of this wasn't hearsay?
So the opposing party, which down the line, like I said, they talked about this for about an hour and a half, and they discussed how if Lance was in court and he was giving his first party, giving his testimony as the opposing party, whatever, all of this would be fine. They had an issue with how the questions were being asked and that they were not allowed to cross-examine him. Mm-hmm. So that is why his video testimony would not be accepted in the main trial. And what I said to you is this entire preliminary hearing is under Utah's 1102. So they are allowed to just use hearsay. And
no,
so
he
the
didn't
judge,
say that. He said most of it was hearsay, actually.
Okay. It's not, the whole thing isn't under a Rule 02, just specific evidence that is under Rule 1102. just certain things, like not the whole thing itself. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
The
it was.
overwhelming majority.
Well, I mean, and that's I'm leaning now into my opinion that some scientific aspects, which they kept asserting, like the federal rule 403 or 402, some of those parts were quite
Sound
scientific.
like you're backtracking quite a bit.
No, I'm not backtracking at all. What do you feel
Okay.
like let me help you. Where do you feel like I'm backtracking? It
Well,
literally was done under Utah's 1102.
Yeah, nobody disputed that.
Okay.
What the dispute was is whether or not most of it was overwhelmingly hearsay. Is that
Yes,
the case?
it was. Yes, that's
Okay.
a fact. I'm not backtracking on
And
that at
what
all.
are the things?
How many times did you, I mean,
Yeah.
if you watch the video here, it's like they constantly, I'm 1102, 1102, 1102,
Mhm.
1102,
That's true.
1102. And the reason for that is because it's allowed. I'm not saying it's illegal. It's allowed at this stage, but I'm just reminding you that when you're going to sit across from someone and your claim is going to be, where is your hard evidence? This is what I heard and I agree with what I'm watching. You are watching the state put on a hearsay preliminary
There's gonna be
hearing.
hearsay.
And all of those things are not going to be allowed, right? Even when they got into witness statements and things of that nature. There's a reason why they swear you in and they say, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth. Did you,
These
write
things
this
are not in
statement?
dispute.
So it's the overwhelming majority of what you saw was hearsay because other people were representing other people's statements. They were saying they had conversations. We don't know where it came from, all allowed at this stage. Okay. But it's hearsay. So
But
it
even
doesn't,
a lot of that stuff may not fall under hearsay.
No,
under what we
very
just
little
read,
of
right?
it was
but the evidence that
hearsay.
you're speaking about, like when you're just, when you say that we're going off vibes, you don't know Tyler Robinson. Okay. His boyfriend is not 100% it was him. So I'm going back to your points that you made that this was overwhelming evidence for you.
Mhm.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, overwhelming just means
You can't
convincing.
consider another option that there
Well,
could have been
hang
another
on. Do you
white
agree
guy
with me
wearing
that
Converses on campus.
Yeah, do you agree with me that I said that what overwhelming means to me is that it's just very convincing to me?
Yeah, and I find it to be completely unconvincing.
And that's fair. I
Because
understand that
I
you
looked
can
at those
find-
blurry photos
Yeah.
that they presented and said,
Mhm.
your statement on right now is that
Yeah.
he's wearing Converses and he also that's just
But
crazy.
these aren't
to me.
the evidences that I find the most convincing.
Well, you said that.
We just listened to Tyler or to Lance's testimony about the things that Tyler told him after he killed Charlie. He said he regretted it. He wished he wouldn't have done it. Like all that, like she just completely skips over all that. Who else would be in the stairwell with the gun going up to the roof? And then later, then Tyler's trying to get the gun. He's saying, "Oh yeah, I did shoot him. I, look under the keyboard. I wrote a whole note about it. Oh, let me go home. Oh, now I'm home and I'm crying. I'm upset. I wish I wouldn't have done it." What the hell? You can't just ignore all of that.
And your Twitter.
That's not the only thing I've ever said on my Twitter about this case.
Right, but the question that was asked of you was pretty direct.
Yeah.
Right. What did you find
this
to
is
be?
not an exhaustive list of all the things
Well, that's
that I
not
find
what you said in the
convincing.
tweet. You can tweet longer too. It's not like we're limited now to 240 characters anymore.
So anything that I tweet
What
and
does
all
this
other
have to
tweets
do
that I've
with
ever made.
anything? What does this have to do with anything? Oh my gosh. Why on earth is she talking about this again? Why is she talking about his tweet? What does that have to do with anything? Oh my gosh. Yeah, she made probably $30,000 in ad break too, which is just unbelievable. On top of the $300,000. And then she didn't even debate.
Okay, we're back. Fantastic. I think we're back. By the way, just an FYI, for those of you that are watching The Crucible, there's 30,000 concurrent there watching. Support Andrew Wilson. That's your fans of his. Click that subscribe button and help him grow his business. If you're watching Candace, I think there's 225 to 250,000 concurrent right now. We'd like to see that 300, 400,000 number on there. Click that button as well to subscribe and share it with your friends and family. And if you're watching it on PBD Podcast, do the same there as well. This allows us to have more conversations like this. The mainstream media hates the fact that we're having these conversations right now. Just so you know, they want to control it. This is free for all. This is what's best for the audience. That's why we like freedom of speech. Having said that, let's go back into the text conversation you were having, right?
Okay.
Let's stay and then we'll go into the cross-examination stuff in about 30 minutes.
Okay, that sounds fair. Okay, so yeah, I used basically three pillars for the totality of the evidence. Okay, so if you want to know exactly what those three pillars are, this is going to be the testimony with the text messages and the confessions. This is going to be the physical evidence, and this is going to be the totality of the summary of the case. Okay, so right now we're focusing on one of these pillars in my defense, which is fine. I understand that I have to defend my claims as well. So when we're talking about the messages themselves, they seem totally valid. I have no idea why they wouldn't be valid. And I have not heard any good explanation for why it is that these messages should even be questioned. The defense hasn't questioned them as far as I'm aware. Nobody has actually questioned that these messages came from Robinson to date, except perhaps you and other people who are kind of in that camp. But why should I question these exactly? I'm not sure.
Okay, so first let's just go over legally what the point is of a probative hearing. The defense is not putting on, they're not there to say or to argue or to defend themselves at all. They have to address what is being presented by the state. Okay, so they're not here to then say, let me give you an explanation for these.
That is not true. That is so untrue. It's unbelievable. That's not what's going on. If you are, as a defense attorney, have exculpatory evidence, which would have to be given to you by the state gave them everything, especially regarding the text messages they've had early on, to know if they were fake or not. You also have your client who would tell you if they were fake or not. So you have access to your client. They seem to think that Tyler's like mute and can't speak to his defense team. Tyler's not mute. Like, he can tell his defense team, I never sent those text messages. I never did any of that. Okay, then they would go and they would make sure they have the proper metadata on those messages, and they would check and see if there's any fishy business going on with these messages, and they would immediately, but even before the preliminary hearing, but definitely at the preliminary hearing at the very least, they would definitely bring that up, because if they didn't, they would be practicing malpractice and they would get their law licenses removed. If they have exculpatory evidence that their client did not send those text messages, was not at that location, was in fact somewhere else at a steakhouse visiting his grandparents and stuff like they imply, then they would bring that up, because this is the time before and then during, this is when you would bring up stuff to counter the stuff the state is showing, to bring up probable cause, to counter the probable cause, to X out the probable cause so it doesn't get moved to a trial. That's the last thing you want if your client is innocent, for it to get moved to a trial. So what she's saying here, where she's saying they're only addressing what the state is putting forth because the government can only, or the court can only look at what the state says, that is not true. They can bring their own evidence. They can bring their own witnesses. They can bring all kinds of their own stuff to the preliminary hearing. In fact, they were told that they could. And in fact, they were able to cross-examine. They brought in their own witnesses. They're the ones who called the DNA witnesses and the forensic bullet analysis witness from the ATF. Those were their witnesses that they called, and they examined, and then they were cross-examined back and forth. Okay, so it is unbelievable to say that they would not bring that forth if they have evidence to show that Tyler Robinson was not guilty at the probable cause hearing. They would have been bringing it up before the probable cause hearing and motion hearings and at motions that they filed with the court. You do not wait until trial to bring this stuff forward. In fact, when you get to trial, you are in a danger zone. You are now at the mercy of a seated jury. Okay, everybody knows this. This is literally insane.
Text messages.
Agreed.
The relevant portion of what the defense did do was actually before we got to the preliminary hearing. I had mentioned that it was initially supposed to be scheduled for some time in May. They asked for an extension. That reading through those filings of why they were requesting an extension and why I actually believe their extension should have been granted, because they did not receive discovery on their text messages. That was one of the.
It was granted. What is she talking about? It was granted. All this, both sides agreed that they should have more time. And it wasn't just because of the text messages. It was because of all the video, the tons and tons of files and everything. It wasn't just for one thing.
Reasons. There were many reasons why they wanted to have an extension, but this was crucial, right? So forget just the general sense that these messages feel off. And yes, you are allowed to have an intuition. You are allowed to have a sense and just go, this is very weird. We're being told this kid had like above a 4.0, Tyler Robinson. He wanted to get away. I mean, the text messages almost run head to head with themselves. Like, he wanted to get away with it. So he thought the best thing to do would be to text a full confession of what he did, down to what I didn't even remember, saying, yeah, and that's also me, Mr. Surveillance footage.
Yes. Criminals do this. Criminals do this all the time. They're actually incredibly dumb and do really incredibly stupid, dumb stuff all the time. Like,
it felt a little too on the nose. People have common sense. You just don't text message. But then we're also supposed to believe that he put a note under and burn this and get rid of the evidence. But don't worry about that because I'm about to text you a full confession. That it felt off. It felt weird off the bat.
Lance Twiggs just testified that happened. He said he found the letter after the message was texted to him. What is going on? Like, we have confirmation from Lance that this happened. Aside from the messages, we have confirmation from the random friend who was in the Discord.
The manner in which they were texting, we're told he's like a gamer who's using a Dremel to carve expressions, catch fashion.
Lance Twiggs just said that he asked him for a Dremel to carve bullets. I'm sorry. Like, what is going on?
But then suddenly he's writing like a 1700
also, as a Helldivers
novelist.
player, he did actually get the 500K code correct.
He's what do you mean writing? Like a novelist? What does that mean? No.
Yeah, I'm not a gamer, so we'll say that if we start debating that, you'll be way over my head.
But yes,
but my point being is just that first, it's a general sense of why people had a reaction to these messages that seemed like they were written by Jane Austen rather than like a kid who games and writes catch fast.
Who is? Has she ever read Jane Austen? What is going on? Like, this is so dumb. Like, no, they don't sound like Jane Austen.
How that's intuition?
That is. I just said that. I said just parking aside the intuition of just something feels wrong here, which you should follow your intuition. You should actually do that. If you say the COVID vaccine is running out, feels like it's coming out too fast and there's too many celebrities telling you to do it, I'd like to take a pause. That's good. That is, you are allowed to do that. I believe in intuition.
But hang on. Let me respond a little bit here because you've been going for a minute. Let me at least respond to a little bit of this. So the first thing is like when people bring up the COVID vaccine, not trusting the COVID vaccine en masse was the science. That wasn't just intuition. That was the science. There was tons of competing science. Now they tried to suppress it. That's true. But there was tons of competing science for why you shouldn't take a risky mRNA vaccine and mass and things like this. Now, when you're talking about intuition, though, when you say trust your intuition, I'm actually giving a different message. You actually should be very wary about trusting just your intuition. It is true that intuition can be useful, but it has to be tempered with logic, reason, explanatory power, and evidence, not just intuition.
That's why we're parking it aside. Intuition is the first step. Something feels off, right?
Okay.
That was my first step with COVID. I don't like the way it's being pushed. It shouldn't require a celebrity campaign, by the way. Another element of that is why people don't feel good about the Charlie thing. Why do we have so many influencers saying things? It's over. Why are you guys all using the same adjective? Can you switch it up? I'm overwhelmed. Like, chill. Like, you could say, I found some parts compelling. I think this should go.
Like
I found some parts compelling. Maybe we should,
Overwhelming is what the lawyers used in court. It's the English word you would use for what is going on. That's why everyone is using it, because it's a normal that I used it. No one told me to use it. It's everything I see is very overwhelming compared to normal trials. At this stage, you don't normally get this much information. There's so much of it. It's very overwhelming. It's a lot.
See at the trial, that would be
Don't you think FedSlop's a buzzword for the counter industry?
But everyone on the same day of watching this trial, which was, I would say, not overwhelming at all. Nobody came in medium, right? No one came in like there were some interesting aspects. This was a little suspect. But I do think it's enough to go to trial. They all came in like they were passing away and we're going to die from being overwhelmed.
Well, they're trusting their intuition.
Okay. Well, actually, in that scenario, they're looking at the preliminary hearing, have a reaction to it. It wasn't their intuition. But like I said, parking aside, just getting to the substance, parking aside, just a general intuition. Sometimes might be second messages. Then we look at the filings, which came from the defense, and they were requesting an extension saying, we have gone to the prosecution and we have requested all of this stuff in discovery. Yes, you are saying that you took Lance's phone, okay, and that you collected his phone on September 11th.
That is the normal process in court. They make the request when they're ready, and then the prosecutors send the discovery to them in the process that's laid out. And with this case, there's so much that they have had to set up a whole system for doing it, because it goes through like the state gives it to like this branch, and then they organize and label it and everything, and then hand it over to this to the defense, so that everything is done in a proper manner and it's not all confusing.
and that you sent it off or whatever. You took a picture of the text messages, and we are being given these text messages to review. Crucially,
oh my gosh, yes, she thinks that all they have is a text the picture of the text messages. There are warrants and there are documents showing that they got warrants for the phones, tons of other devices, the dash cam footage, because he had dash cam in his car, and several other devices and computers, etc. They got warrants for all that, and they gave all the data and all that to the defense. Not just the pictures. She thinks they only just have the pictures that they took initially when they were doing their first investigation. They didn't want to wait to have the data extracted to see what it says, so they just took pictures from Lance's phone. You can't take his phone without a warrant. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Kathy Nestor said, I have not even been given access to my client's phone during this hearing. She said, I haven't even been access to my client's phone. She can't tell you, as a part of the discovery request, it's not enough to say to me, Candace, I just got a text message.
She's totally misrepresenting all this. They have the discovery on the phones and everything. Now she's acting like they haven't been given all the discovery and everything. Here's this.
Yes, we are, Judge, but prior to calling our first witness, I would like Mr. McBride to make a brief report on discovery updates, and then just inform the court that the state has provided copies of all exhibits for today's proceedings to the defense in advance of this hearing. So,
all right. Mr. McBride.
Yes, Your Honor. My report at the last hearing is the latest report. As of June 18th, we had provided approximately 100% of the material in our possession. Over the last week, we have received additional materials from SBI due to preparation for this hearing. Those materials have not yet been provided, but they will be as soon as this hearing is complete.
As of June 18th, we have provided 100% of the discovery in our possession. You would have to be willfully ignoring all of this shit. Like, just willfully ignoring everything that's going on to come to the conclusions that are being came to.
From Candace, and I say, I didn't send that text message. Maybe that's for a client saying, we don't know because we're not at the trial, right? Maybe he didn't send those messages. Could there be someone who logged into his Discord? Could there be someone who logged in to his Apple? George could be sending text messages right now. We are married. He has every login that I have. And remember, he's up for a death sentence. So if I'm able to sow reasonable doubt with common sense, he may come during the trial, and when they actually have to address these points, say, I did not write those messages. I was here. Lance, my boyfriend, was logged into my phone, logged into my Apple ID and my iCloud, sending messages.
Why would they be waiting for the trial to say all this? If he did not send those text messages, they would be saying it now. You wouldn't wait until the trial. What the hell? No.
I know that we have the capability because my husband does it. He has the capability to send messages from my phone. It is not convincing to the public when, for whatever reason, the FBI combined with the SBI, it was not the prosecution's fault. They made that clear during that hearing, would not allow them that discovery request to be able to see where did that message come from? Because you're saying my client was here, right? I want to know if that message actually.
That's not true. That had nothing to do with the FBI. None of this that she's saying is true. The only thing that had to do with the FBI was they wanted the God, I can't talk. The proprietary code of the company that did the ad mixtures, which is like completely unreasonable. They're just doing that because this is what a death penalty defense does. They muddy they make everything annoying and crazy. So the FBI that did the DNA testing, the tools that they use to do that is owned by a company, and the defense was demanding the proprietary source code from that company. They're never going to get that. They're just being defense attorneys have explained this. Defense attorneys have explained all this all over LawTube, all over Twitter and everything. They've explained all this crazy stuff that they're saying. Defense attorneys have explained this stuff. Okay, like, has nothing to do with the text messages. Like, I don't even think the FBI had anything to do with that. That was all. I mean, anybody can use Celebrate. It's not an FBI only tool. I can go and get certified as a Celebrate forensic tool user, and I can like you know, be hired as an expert to do that. To yeah, so like they have them in the police stations. They plug the phone in. It takes like a couple hours, and like it's not FBI.
Actually was generated from his iPhone when he was waiting to retrieve his, rifle, hoping that the pooch doesn't have a bad sniffer, like just weird messages. I want to make sure that yes, it was actually him. He was holding his phone, and his boyfriend didn't just log in to his computer when he was home. Lance was his boyfriend. That is a crucial fact here. That discovery was not met by the time we got to preliminary hearing. So I remain unconvinced by these text messages. Just as you feel convinced by them, I feel unconvinced by them.
Okay. So then the idea here is the reason that you don't think that these are valid text messages, and you don't, right?
It has not been proven that these messages are valid, and they don't sound valid to me.
Mhm.
I don't think anyone, even if someone was selling like a, I don't know, pot on the corner, would be smarter than to write a full-fledged confession. He even writes, I thought I would get away with it, and I was hoping never to tell you until old age. And then we're being told that he wanted to commit suicide. And okay, but he just said he wanted to get away with it, but he's not smart enough to, I don't know, maybe not text. It's such a confession like we've never.
Oh my God. The night before, he's talking about it like, oh, I meant to delete that auto text. I didn't mean for it to go through. Then the next day, he's getting upset and like going to off himself because they're noticing it's him. He's getting calls from his parents, from his coworker and everything, and he's freaking out. Like this is what I mean. It's not that weird. I don't know.
I think this would be like the first time ever somebody has start to finish written an entire, I'm in the surveillance footage and I'm here and I'm wearing my Converse. I'm being a little facetious here, but it was a little ridiculous. It didn't pass the sniff test for me.
You have kids and you love them more than anything.
I do.
If it was the case that you thought that your kid was innocent, wouldn't you be out telling everybody and their brother that you thought that they were innocent? And also, wouldn't you maybe recant and say, hey, he didn't actually confess to me. He didn't actually, none of this happened the way that the state is presenting it. What would have prevented the parents from testifying?
Well, two things I can answer that. And if you watch my show, I keep telling you it's not vibes. So right after the shooting happened, Lance Twiggs, the FBI put him into a safe house they paid for. They went to the parents as well, to Matt Robinson and Amber, basically said, your life's at risk. There could be somebody who jumps up and wants to avenge Charlie Kirk. And, we're going to watch you. And they went into a federal safe house. What happened next is that they started thinking that the feds were maybe going to, maybe not as honest as they thought. And
how do you know any of that?
So you gotta watch the show, right?
Yeah, no, how do you know that?
I had a source within the Robinson family.
You have a source, an anonymous source, of course. So there's no way for us to verify that what you're saying right now is actually even true.
You find it to be reliable hearsay?
No, I don't find it to be reliable at all. It's just a source.
I'm just doing what the
prosecution
prosecution
you're doing is a cool story.
It's not cool. Well, you must have hated watching the preliminary hearing.
You're giving us a cool story. You're saying that according to your sources, that the reason that the parents haven't recanted any of this.
Recanted what? They have no statement from the parents.
Wait, I just want to make sure that if it was the case, it was being reported in mainstream media that your father came to you and said, hey, is this you? What's going on here? And then he and one of his buddies took you in where you turned yourself in. You wouldn't go out and be like, no, that's not what happened.
That isn't what happened, though. You're just wrong on this.
Okay, maybe I'm paraphrasing. What am I wrong on?
So what is just so I'm clear, where is your evidence that the parents turned him in?
Well, no, I didn't say that.
You said the mainstream media?
I said with a sheriff friend.
Yes.
But the father did confront him.
The father confronted what?
Tyler Robinson.
And where did you learn this? That the Tyler
that's part of the official documents. Our fact checkers can pull that up. But yes.
But I'm saying, when you say official documents, do you mean you saw this on CNN or you saw this play out in the hearing?
No, this was one of the things that I went through in fact check pre-debate.
Are you talking about the charging documents?
I think it was it could have been in the charging documents, but we can pull them up.
No.
And yes, are you disputing it?
I mean, Tyler Robinson said, I'm turning myself in to his Discord friends. Him and Lance had a conversation about it, and Lance just relayed that in that video testimony that we heard from. Then she's going to say that there's no evidence that the parents said any of this, but they did, because when they went to turn Tyler in, when they went with Tyler for him to turn himself in, they were questioned. They were taken, aside, and they were questioned, and snippets of that, paraphrasings of that, is in the charging documents where it says, the mother reported blah, 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 blah. The father reported that he also thought that his son looked like Tyler Robbins, or the pictures looked like his son, and the gun also looked like his son. So he called his son and he said blah 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 blah. And then and then they were able to convince the son to come to their house. And then they were able, and then there he implied that he had killed Charlie Kirk and he was thinking of taking his own life. And then we convinced him not to do. Those are all stuff that they said. This is all going to have been written down and probably videotaped at the police station. So yes, they would have said this. Like, but she's going to say this is all coming from the guy who convinced Tyler to turn himself in, quotation marks, she thinks, and not from the parents, which is absurd. Because it says the father reported, the mother stated.
Do we have that in the back to pull it up?
I can already tell you what you're talking about, the charging documents, because this is where we had to figure out where this story came from, because everyone was operating on the assumption that Matt Robinson turned him in until we got to the preliminary hearing. And we understood, like I said, even for that, when you are charging someone, you can use hearsay. It's all probative, right? Sure. Nothing. So they didn't have statements. It's not like Matt Robinson, even though he was interviewed that night. Amber Robinson was interviewed that night by a Fed, separate rooms. Tyler Robinson was interviewed by a Fed. They did not produce statements saying, my son did this. I believe my son did this. But what happened was they did interviews, but also the crucial person here who you just brought up is Mike Mitchell. Mike Mitchell is the biggest unknown in this entire case. Everyone keeps saying they heard from Mike Mitchell this, they heard from Mike Mitchell that. So when the person wrote up the report that night, and it was Brian Davis who wrote up what became the charging document, he after they transported Tyler Robinson from the Washington Sheriff's County office up to, I think it's Salt Lake City. I think it was 4 a.m. in the morning that they got up there. He then writes the what becomes a charging document. So he's basically saying, we all spoke to a bunch of people and here's the information that we got, right? We've not seen that. So it could have come from Mike Mitchell. Mike Mitchell could be saying,
I don't know how this negates the point, though.
Why wouldn't the parents? The point, because you don't have a statement from the parents.
Yeah,
you are going.
Why wouldn't they just correct the
it's not correcting. That doesn't negate the point. The point is that we now got the preliminary hearing. If the parents were the ones who said, I'm turning my son in because he's guilty.
I didn't say they turned him in.
I think you're talking about the over. You said it's been the narrative. Everybody's known this. The narrative initially, which I think you agree with, was that, Matt Robinson knew his kid was guilty and turned him into the police station. What actually happened in terms of Sheriff Brooksby, who was present there and gave a press conference, what happened was this Mike Mitchell character essentially peer pressured him. And we can get a fact check on this. We can find Sheriff Brooksby's press conference. And he said, they know it's you and you're going to come in.
This is a complete mischaracterization of what that guy said. He was just explaining how he was brought in, and it was just explained like they asked the parents after getting Tyler to their house, having the conversation with him. They asked the friend to come over, and he explained that the best thing to do would be to, gather whatever evidence you have here. Do you have the clothes you were wearing? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, then grab it, and then we will go peacefully turn ourselves in because you don't want, to have it be like this extreme big ordeal. And so that's all that guy was relaying. It's like she's taking it way out of context.
Peaceably, or people are going to be banging down your door. He was a undercover cop, which I don't like that. I don't know what he did undercover. It's very hard to find anything about Mike Mitchell, but he worked with them for 20 plus years, the police officers. The reason why Tyler Robinson knew him was because he lived nearby and he was also his Boy Scout leader.
How does this negate that the parents could write this second? And by the way, if you have the evidence, address
that point. I'm just saying that your first point, which is that the parents did this.
Yeah.
We don't know that the parents.
I didn't say that they did ever.
Well, you're quoting the parents as having said. You said that Matt Robinson said that his kid was, you say, involved. I don't want to misquote you.
Confronted him about it.
Confronted him.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that we have not seen any evidence that is true.
We can fact check that.
Okay.
Because we do have evidence.
And I'm saying it's the charging doc, which could have been derived from a statement Mike Mitchell said.
Two things I have ready in the back. One is the charging doc, and the other one is a video of Kathy Nestor saying she hasn't seen Tyler's phone.
Okay, we can run Kathy to go back and then
first?
just go backwards to Kathy first in court saying she didn't get her client's phone. Yeah, and then I think we'll go to the. If you're okay with that,
thing not in dispute. These are all things that are not even disputed.
Okay, so we don't show it.
We never get to the thing that I am disputing.
Well, I was just providing an answer. We were coming back in from a break because you were talking about the text messages, something that you felt was concrete. So it was just my rebuttal to you that it's not concrete because they haven't had a chance to actually answer that, and she didn't even get to see your client's phone. So that's effectively, again, the state saying these messages are real. You don't get the discovery on these messages just yet. She will during trial. They will actually
discover
the
messages. Don't you think that would make their case fall apart if it was the case that they weren't able to actually pull the data off the text messages? Do you think the prosecution would go to court with fabricated text messages?
It's called winners and losers. They may not be fabricated. But by the way, as what they are saying, like I said, if there was somebody logged into his phone, they may not be fabricated. That's the point.
So let's get to the,
they just could be somebody else.
They are going to have location data that shows that he has his phone. during all this. While he's texting, there will be location data. Oh my gosh. I don't understand why she wants to get Charlie Kirk's killer off so bad. This is unbelievable evidence that he is the shooter. He will have a fair trial. This court proceedings so far have been extremely fair. He's innocent until proven guilty, yes, but the evidence shows that he is Charlie Kirk's killer. The evidence that we have seen is very much convincing, overly overwhelming that he is the killer, and yet she is so hell-bent on getting him off. It's just, I don't understand it. I really don't. It is so weird and bizarre and makes no sense.
It's fact check.
Yeah, so I was saying, I believe what you're talking about was derived from the charging doc, which was signed off by Brian Davis. Let's see if that's correct. What are we looking at
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, I'm sorry.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Is this the charging doc?
I can't see it. Robinson's father.
Robinson's mother explained. Robinson's father reported. This is them telling the police this. A family friend spoke to police and reported, telling Robinson. So this is what the mother said. This is what the father said. And then down here below is what the family friend said, that it would be best if he brought in all the evidence to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search. And so it goes on from there. But here's what the mother said. This two other highlighted portions is what the father said. They're not, I mean, I don't know, man.
Reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched the rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle, which makes sense with the text messages. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home.
Yes. So this is proving my point. This is from the charging document, correct? Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is that 3 people got interviewed on that night. Mike Mitchell got interviewed, Amber Robinson got interviewed, and Matt Robinson got interviewed.
Yeah, and those are the 3 summaries of the interviews. The mother stated, the father reported, the family friend also stated. Like, those are like, what are you talking about?
3 of them, only one of them actually wrote, which was referred to in this preliminary trial. He came in, I believe, in March, Mike Mitchell, and he wrote a statement, which I find to be very shady that they decided to bring.
But why aren't the parents disputing that?
No. Well, first off,
that's the question.
First off, the parents are not going to ever play in court, play to the cameras in court when they have a legal team that is going to be advising them not to speak to the court because your son could go to prison
forever. But they're playing to somebody else who's your source.
I'm not going to address that.
They're playing to someone else.
The lawyers wouldn't tell them to be silent. If this was true, they'd want to get Tyler off. That doesn't make any sense. Like, it's the exact opposite. And they're also not under a gag order. Okay, so no, Tyler Robinson's parents are not under a gag order. There is a pre-trial publicity order, often called a gag order, issued by Judge Graff early in the case. It primarily restricts lawyers involved in the case, prosecutors and defense, investigators, and others participating in the investigation or litigation from making extrajudicial statements that have a substantial likelihood of prejudicing the proceedings. So, they're not under a gag order. And if any of the stuff she's saying is true, the lawyers would want them, his defense attorneys would want them to speak out about it. Like, it's the exact opposite of what she's saying.
Here's your source, but won't go publicly tell the media this is not true?
Well, what I did not say to you that. I just said I have a source. So I want to be very clear and take it from somebody who is involved and permanently sued. When I have to take my lawyer's advice, I mean, there's so many things I want to respond to when people are speaking about.
Yeah, but it's bizarre that they would utilize a source which would get the information to you, but wouldn't just go to the media and be like, actually, that's all wrong.
I am telling you that you would nary find a lawyer who would advise you to go to the media.
This mother,
especially when your son.
If I thought that my kid.
That is not true. That is not true. That is completely false.
Up for death.
If I thought that my kid was in any way, shape, or form going to be up, you couldn't shut me up. Or my wife, she would be like, that's not true. That's ridiculous. There's no possible. That never happened. These people are lying through their teeth. They'd be public whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's for you and your wife. But when a judge issues a gag order in a case and your son is up for death and your lawyers could be advising you that if you say anything, you could blow the case, you would have a more responsible consideration.
I see.
And we're speaking opinion here. You're like, well, I wouldn't care. I'd violate it and I'd violate the judge's orders and see what happens.
If you have a source, it seems like they're violating it with them.
They're not under a gag order. And if there was something like this going on, you would want, as a defense attorney, you would want people talking about it. Oh, God. This is so dumb. It's so dumb. It's so, I'm going to have to stop soon. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. All of this stuff surrounding all this is just so stupid. Like, I'm getting so tired of it. It's such, like, it literally damages my brain. I watched this stupid debate. It's not even a debate because she's not even debating. It's more like just a heated discussion. Like, I watched this stupid thing like the day or 2 days before, or like, I watched it and then I watched the reactions to it on some places to find out what was going on behind the scenes and stuff like that with his team and stuff. And so I was sort of like inundated with this for like a couple of days. And then I had that interview with Ethan and I could barely think. Like, I was so frazzle brained and now it's happening to me again. This whole situation is so dumb. It's like so mind-numbingly retarded that I cannot, like, it's ruining my brain. It's causing me to, I can't pronounce words correctly. I'm starting to say things, mispronounce things even worse than I already do. Like, and I'm getting tired. We'll play a little bit more and then I might do a part 2 or I might not. I don't know.
I'm not speaking to a source, but what I am saying to you is speaking just relevant to what this is. We have not seen any proof that statement that is included in this charging document. I think it is highly likely on the basis of the preliminary hearing that all came from Mike Mitchell, and Mike Mitchell would be a part. He's
based
saying,
on the statements of the,
it's
the
him
parents.
saying the parents told me this. The parents could dispute that. That's going to come down the line, right? They're going to be able to see the parents. I will say this, putting together context clues. If the state had it on, 100% certainty that Matt Robinson and Amber Robinson said it, a 5-day preliminary hearing would be a good time to say we have enough evidence. And I can tell you why Matt Robinson made this statement, and here is his statement that he signed.
No, that's not what they're doing. They're not proving they have to prove every charge. So they're not showing all the evidence they have on every charge. They're just showing some of it, like just a small amount for every charge that's being charged, the 7 charges. So, like, each of the things they showed in court correlated to one of the charges so that they could have all those bound over for trial. They're not putting on him. Oh my God. Just saying, I have the testimony of the parents would not then allow the charges on obstruction, the charges on the aggravating factors that like puts the death penalty on, where it's like death in front of a child, the political targeting one, whatever, and then the shooting, the violence in front of a child, There's all the charges, all the and the aggravating factors. Just saying I have statements from the parents would not prove every single one of those charges and elements that have to be bound over for trial. So that's why they did it the way that they did it, that they have to oh my god, I can't. She thinks all they would have to do is just walk in and say we have testimony from the parents, and that would bind over every charge they're being charged with.
Would have been a good time to present that evidence.
That would also be a good time for the defense to say that's just totally fabricated.
No, it's not. It's the wrong time.
Why couldn't they?
That is completely the wrong time.
Why couldn't they?
Because what they're doing is they already said they didn't receive discovery. They literally can't. They literally can't because they can't.
Yes, they can. They have their client. And I just showed you guys the video where they have 100% of discovery as of June 18th. And yes, they can. If their client is telling them 100%, I did not send those things, they can. They've had 11 months. What are you talking about? They've had 11 months to prepare for this preliminary hearing. Like, what is she talking about? This is insane. This is none of this is true. Every single thing that she is saying about this preliminary, the evidence, the procedure, every single thing is not true and wrong, completely wrong.
You're saying that they didn't receive that information?
No, they just received the text messages. But in order to...
That's not the text messages.
The probative information.
Yeah, we're talking about the information that we just reviewed. That's not the text messages.
They never presented it. The state never put it on.
Yeah, they didn't. The defense could easily still have presented this, yeah?
No.
They could have said they're... No, they're not allowed to? Are you sure?
In a preliminary hearing, the defense is engaging with whatever evidence the state decides to put on. They did not put this on as evidence. Brian Davis was up there.
So they're not allowed to present anything?
They're responding to the state's evidence.
I'm asking, are they allowed to present anything?
They are allowed to say...
Like if there was a conspiracy that they could prove right then and there, would they present that in one of these hearings?
No, it wouldn't be the right time for that.
I disagree. I think that they not only could do it...
They are allowed to do it. And Andrea Burkhart, I'm not going to find it because we don't have time for all this, right? But Andrea Burkhart showed the document of Judge Graff approving all that they could put on their own thing, bring their own witnesses, do their own, all that thing. Like it's in writing.
But they would do it. In fact, when I talked in depth with my attorney, they said that's exactly, if you had actual evidence that there was fabrications by the feds, that's exactly when you would introduce that.
So when in the document that they filed yesterday or a couple of days ago, the appropriate, like what you're doing at this stage of the hearing is the state is saying, we have enough evidence that we think this needs to go forth with the trial. Hence the reason that there's this extraordinary, we allow hearsay because it doesn't really need to be perfect. It can be enough that we feel like we can move forward, right? And okay, I disagree with that in general when somebody's rotting in prison, but whatever. The next phase is for them to meet in court and for...
That is the point, to keep people from rotting in prison. That is the point of the probable cause hearing, is to make sure you're not not making someone sit in jail that entire time waiting on a trial when there is no proper evidence that they actually did the crime. That is the point of the probable cause hearing. That's what it is for. That's literally what it's for. What the hell is she talking about? What the actual fuck is going on? Like, is she, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, is she purposely lying? Or is she just really this dumb? Please, you guys have to tell me what you think. Like, does she actually believe what she's saying here? Because if she does, I'm like extremely concerned that how on earth does she like function as in the world as a like human being?
The defense to essentially present an argument to the state that says, we find this filing to be defective in and of itself. We don't even have to defend ourselves because you, the state, have enough, you know what the laws are on the books, and this filing is defective and you should get rid of these charges because they don't make sense based on what you can decide based on a law on the books. So that's why they then file the dismissal. Right. So in the dismissal, what they're doing is they are engaging, and this is what was widely misinterpreted.
Well, yeah, they're engaging as though as it's a hypothetical. If this is hypothetically true, then
so they're saying all of these charges.
I'm not disputing any of that.
So that's what you're asking. Why you're saying could they just
what I'm asking specifically is like, who could shut parents up who are like, no way, there's no possible, this never happened, this is ridiculous. They would be shouting it on CNN. They would be shouting it from the rooftops. They would be losing their minds. And you're like, nope, the gag order would be enough to keep them quiet. Not
So in the dismissal in the response that the defense gave, and they're asking for certain things to be dismissed, blah, 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 they're mostly asking for the aggravating factors to be dismissed and some other accounts. Their main goal is to get those aggravating factors not bound over, then the death penalty isn't on the table. So that's mostly what they're concerned with in their response.
Enough for them to talk to your source, but enough to keep them quiet. I think that that's quite ridiculous. But I'll even concede this whole point to you. Let's just say maybe this was misconstrued, right? If there's a little bit of reason to doubt it because we're still waiting for the evidence for trial. If that's the case, then why not take the same standard for the evidence that you present? You're just waiting for trial.
Well, you didn't do that.
Wait a
reason
second.
we're here.
Wait a second. I just want to make sure that I got this right. That's your argument to me, right?
My argument to you is what?
Your argument to me is that, hey, wait a second, Andrew. There's not enough here that convinces me, right?
She does not understand what you're saying. She has no idea what you are trying to convey to her. I'm telling you, she has no idea what he's talking about right now. Holy F, like this is so bad.
Well, that's actually my rebuttal to you, is that you are saying, why are people engaging in what you term to be conspiracy theories?
No.
I term it to be thinking. They're just thinking because they're recognizing there are a lot of holes in these stories and that this is not strong evidence, right? This is the reason they're doing it. I'm explaining to you, this is the reason that they're doing it.
This is extremely strong evidence. This is in any, okay, imagine that this was just a regular murder case and it wasn't Charlie Kirk. And you had video footage of a dude showing up to the let's say apartment complex, scoping it out, leaving, coming back, but not parking in the parking complex, but parking down the street. Ring video camera catches him doing that. If catches him walking through the neighborhood to the apartment complex, that's all on camera. He's hiding something in his shirt, clearly. He goes into the apartment, brutally murders a woman in the apartment. She also has cameras in her house that capture the whole thing. He then puts the murder weapon, he walks out, video camera sees him, go into the bushes, hide the murder weapon because he hears maybe cop sirens or something, like somebody's called the cops. He goes home. Oh, no. He's waiting around to get the murder weapon. While he's waiting around, he texts with his roommate saying, I just offed this lady, but I'm waiting to get my weapon because there's cops around. I have to wait for them to leave. Cops find the weapon with his DNA on it. He doesn't know they found it, though. He goes back to find it. He says, oh my gosh, it's not here. It must be in the wrong spot. Oh, well, I guess it's fine, whatever. Then he comes home. Then the next day, stills from the footage of him walking around get put out. Coworker messages him. This looks like you. People in his Discord friends go, oh my gosh, this guy on the campus looks like you. And then he starts freaking out. He tells his roommate, this is the end. They're going to come and get me. I'm paranoid now. I'm pacing around. I wish I wouldn't have done that. Then his parents say, oh my gosh, is this you? And then he's like, and they're like, please come to our house. He comes to their house, implies that it is him. Then they say, okay, we're going to turn you in. Then as he's getting turned in, he tells all of his friends in Discord, yeah, it really was me. Sorry, blah, blah, blah. Then he turns himself in. And then they have location data from the phone that pings him all around, scoping everything out, planning it all out, going to buy the murder weapon, whatever, driving around. They have the Google Maps data. Also, the guy had a dash camera in his car that recorded everything. I mean, so imagine you have all this evidence, and then imagine somebody coming in and going, they really don't have any evidence for this. Oh, and then not to mention the DNA on the murder weapon and that. So then they'd also have that in the case. And then imagine like there's a podcaster out there that says there's literally no evidence in this case. There's no evidence. There's nothing to prove that he did any of this. And imagine how insane that would sound.
I'm addressing what you view to be overwhelming evidence. And by the way, I want to be clear.
That which convinces me.
But thus far, every point that you've brought up, every point that you've brought up, did you feel like this is beyond a reasonable doubt? I mean, you realize
remember what I said in my opening.
Going to be
it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's just what I find convincing is what I find overwhelming.
So why are you so upset when people say they don't find it convincing?
If that was the limitation of the claims that you made, if it was just, wait a second, there's a little bit of problems. There's some problems in this case that I have questions for that I want answers to. Nobody have a problem, actually. At least of all me. I would be the least likely person to have an issue with you, any of your fans, anybody saying. In fact, I've had tons of Discord calls about this. My position's always been clear. Of course, conspiracies exist. Some of them have way better evidence than others, but I've seen them myself. I know conspiracy. In fact, the federal government has hundreds of thousands of laws about conspiracies. They see them everywhere. We both know this, right? That's never what the problem is. The problem is when you make claims outside of, well, wait a second. I'm just questioning evidence here. I'm just questioning what the state's case is here. I'm just asking questions. It's when you make claims outside of that, where you claim that there's good evidence or good standards you should believe because, and then it turns out that it's all nonsense or it's wackadoo stuff or it makes no sense. And when we have a chance to cross-examine your evidence that you've presented, I'm going to show a lot of that. A lot of this conjecture that's based on literally nothing that leads from no inferences whatsoever. Like you couldn't even infer it logically. That's the problem. The problem has never been whether or not you just said, there's not enough in this case so far until we get to the trial. I remain unconvinced. I'm sure there's tons of people who remain unconvinced yet until we get to the trial. I think that's fine. I think it's fine. There's people who are convinced too. That's never been my problem. My problem is the claims which are external to that.
Okay. I'm not sure I really care if you have a problem with what I think in my own spare time. I don't understand this lecture that you just gave. But beyond that, what I'm saying is that the state is allowed to use. This is what my problem is. You guys are not like, you guys think while it's illegal. You can. You are allowed to do that. So, but anyway, going back to you saying I wouldn't have a problem. I think I just demonstrated pretty thoroughly that what you claim that you have a problem with is exactly what the state is engaged in at this stage. So it just doesn't make sense.
That's not the case. In fact,
so if people look and they say, I'm looking at the gun and I see, and I'm inferring this, and someone else says, I'm looking at the gun evidence and I'm inferring that, they're both doing the exact same thing.
They're not.
You're just saying, I want to do it for the state.
That's propositionally false.
That is not propositionally false.
I'll explain exactly how. It is the case that every proposition is going to have a true or false conclusion, period. That's just logic, right? It's a law of excluded middle. All propositions are going to be true or they're going to be false. When we're making inferences, we're making inferences based on propositions. We can actually come to true conclusions with false premises inside of a proposition. In fact, what we're talking about here is not whether or not you feel that you're convinced by this evidence.
But you felt like you were convinced.
Right? Sure. But here's the thing. When you ask me my reason, Andrew, why are you convinced by this? I can give you my reasons why I'm convinced by it, why it seems reasonable and rational to me to be convinced. You could even say, but Andrew, I'm just not convinced by it. If that was the limitation of your claims, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. That's why I wanted to have the conversation, in fact, was so that we could.
Yes. The problem is that you are saying that Erica Kirk did a conspiracy to murder her own husband. And you are dragging her every day and accusing her of lies. And it's all this just stupid, nasty, just like uncalled for nonsense. All of Charlie's friends, you're telling people his company is despicable and a disgrace and that it needs to be brought down. You're saying all kinds of crazy stuff with no evidence. That's the problem. You're just making stuff up. It's unbelievable, actually. And I don't want to get I'm already like super mad. Like, this is just so aggravating. This whole thing.
Move into your actual claims that you've made, which transcend the idea of I'm just asking questions.
Before we get into that, your team has one thing they want to show before you go into that. So if you want to pull that up, this is the prosecution filing showing defense had full discovery by April 1st.
They did not. That's not true.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
To date, the state's prosecutors have disclosed all evidence that is presently and reasonably available to them as required under Rule 16, Utah R criminal, to be more precise, as of April 1st.
Yeah, that was not 100%. That's why they're caging that by saying what's reasonable. There was entire, and we can pull this up. Like, we should now play the Kathy Nestor clip because that's from there. So, and they were basically saying you don't need it at this stage, meaning it's not reasonable that you're asking for this when we're going into a hearing that's just going to be based on hearsay and stuff, things of that nature. But of course, by the time a trial comes, you're going to get.
But then on June, like we just saw, it said on June 18th, 100% of the discovery has been given over to the defense.
At all the
Where it's
discovery
just show
documents.
cause.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what they're saying.
Yeah,
there.
I understand.
Okay. So that's
and I'm even fine with
yeah,
it.
that we all know. And then, by the way, just now that the hearing is over, and you can also fact check this, they now at the end of the preliminary hearing dropped like an insane amount of the discovery stuff they gave to them.
Because it's all the stuff that was used in the preliminary. It's the preliminary data, I mean, like, what are you talking about? This is normal. It's the data from the preliminary hearing.
Like the week after, you guys can give me the exact amount. I don't want to say because I don't know my I don't remember how much it was. It was an absurd amount of stuff that they gave them right after the preliminary hearing that they had been asking for. Because that was one of the things that I kept saying on my show is as we were watching that preliminary of the preliminary, why not just give them the stuff now so they can engage in these arguments? Because I feel like you, it's like, I want to hear what they have to say about the text messages. Why can't you just give them what they're asking for so that they can actually engage you? And it didn't happen. So, but
yes, it did. She is lying. She's lying. Either she doesn't know because she's not keeping up on stuff, or she's lying. They have had everything that they needed for that preliminary and more.
The judge ruled that it wasn't necessary at this stage. And that was the whole point of that
because it's
preliminary to the preliminary. Yeah.
Would you like to play the Kathy video?
Well, he's saying he's not disagreeing, so I don't think we need
There's
to.
there's no disagreement that she said that.
Yeah.
So so I guess the disagreements now would move into the evidences that you have stated on the record, which transcend elements of reason.
Why are we having a transcendental conversation now? Because I mean,
because they're all related to this case.
Your entire
oh my God, she doesn't know what that word means. She doesn't know what that word means. Oh my gosh, she doesn't know what that word means, you guys. Okay. So now that we're going into another phase of this where she's just going to pretend like now she's even going to do less debating than before. Let's just not pretend like she wasn't paid $300,000 for the exact reason for him to ask her the questions that he wants to ask her. And then she's going to lose her mind when he brings it up. But okay. We will, I'll probably do a part 2 of this. Or I might stitch it together. We'll see. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed that extremely frustrating and annoying, just utterly aggravating nonsense, Let's all calm down. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day or evening, whatever time it is for you. And please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you next time on The Eclectic Journalist.
Thank you.